Woo! What's up, brothers, sisters, truthers, 10-4 hatters, and woo seekers, Wookiees, time travelers, ghost hunters, and black goo creepers? You know what time it is, people. It's Freaky Friday, February 24th, 2017. And as always, we're sending out the nothing but love vibe to the Wookie Cave at truefrequencyradio.com/chat. And everyone else listening out there on the FM frequencies of 90.7 in Denver, Colorado, 97.3 in Eugene, Oregon, High Heart Radio listeners and all around the world on this thing that we call the net. And oh yeah, people, you know it's on. First time listeners catching this show 1,000 years from now. How does one woo, you might ask? Kick on back and we will show you how. Welcome. Listen, aliens, interdimensional beings, or an AI looking for some data? Sky watchers, rain dancers, chupacabras, voodooers. It doesn't matter what's up. Whoever, whatever, wherever you are, man. Kick on back. You're listening to Freaky Friday on TFR TrueFrequencyRadio.com. And here on the USS Freaky Friday is the usual suspect crew of Captain Wu himself, Kev Baker on the bridge, First Officer Joe Joseph detecting strange life forms in the Wookiee cave, beamers up, Scotty Lopez in the transporter room, and I'm ready to fire Kenneth Webb, a.k.a. change the channel on the Photon Torpedoes. Boom! Also joining us for a little bit tonight is Starfleet Commander himself, Tony Patch. And man, oh man, gentlemen, are we ready for some freaky?
It is. It's Freaky Friday? Wow. This is great. I came to the right place. Hey, fellers. How you doing tonight?
I don't know, but just that introduction from Kenneth Webb, that should be played worldwide every morning. That's enough to get you ready for the day, isn't it?
That's a great idea, because, I work nights now. So, yeah, to get a little motivated, I think I'm just going to play that intro from here on out. Defo.
No, I'm not even going to ask what you're on.
Yeah, classified. You don't want to know that. Let's go to the chat room right now. Right, we got 47 in the Wookiee Cave, and we're just getting started. We got Irish Pete, we got Freeman 8, Lucky, you're a hello there tonight. We got Two Feathers, Andy Yates, Bill Demarest, Carl Allen, Carol Motzinger, Carol Smith Ray. We got Charles Calvo, Chris Smith, Darkwater, good old Daryl 6390, Daryl Bowles, Danita Thompson. We got Drone Free Zone, Gail Wood, Jeff Phillips, George Hanks, James Millward, Jason Simcoe, Jen Golden, John Teeter was here. Hello, John. We got Ken Webb, Ken Baker. We got Louis Ta. We got Loz Aurora Epps. We got Martha Hoff, Mary Ellen Bernard, Matt Walker, Michael Thompson, Nancy Lalonde, Pam Wolf, Real Info Today, Rebecca Jacobs Gray. We got Richard Jones, Robert Dickinson, Rockin' Rio 7. Hey, I like Rockin' Rio. I think Rush did a tour, Rockin' Rio. Yeah. We got Sam Ramirez, Scotty Lopez, Sean Barraclough, Simon Wilkins, Star the Oracle, Stephen Gray, Tano Ortiz, Tony Patch, Tori C., and last but not least, Wayne Jones. Welcome aboard.
Now, I don't want the cult of whistles Anakin. I have dispatched him on a KBS mission. He is making his way to the TRAPPIST-1 star system because Whistles is that fed up with NASA. He's decided, if you want something doing, go and do it yourself. So he's away to examine all these new exoplanets that were announced on the news this week. But he will be back on Monday. You see, we don't have the problems with traveling at the speed of light on KBS. We've got quantum travel, folks. Johnny will be back by Monday, Scott.
Is Whistles going to plant the Templar flag on one of these planets?
Well, I don't know about that, right? But he seems to be getting very worried right now. There's that really good show we discussed, The Curse of Oak Island.
Yes, dude, did they find it? I saw something that they found it. They found the treasure.
They found what they believe is one of the kind of metal hinges that would hold a treasure chest together. They found a gold coin right where the money pit should be. There's going to be another season. But Johnny Whistles, his Templar blood is boiling. He was telling me he's very, very worried. He thinks they're going to find it. Whatever this treasure is his Templar blood is resonating. Maybe he's over in Oak Island right now, re-hiding it. Who only knows? Big shout out to Whistles, though.
Yeah, that's a great show. You know, I do catch TV once in a while, and Oak Island, the Curse of Oak Island, I really do make an effort to watch. And I did watch last week's 2-hour special. It's interesting because it follows somewhat of a parallel path of my research, and I keep expecting to run across something that I can send to them to help them out. But they're on the right path. It is all about the Rosicrucians. It's about the Knights Templar. It's about the Vatican. It is about the jewels of France, the crown jewels. Do
you think the Library of Alexandria, all of that stuff, do you think that plays into it as well, Tony?
You know, I don't think so. I think that too much of that was kept in the Middle East and destroyed as well. I really think it primarily is gold. But what I'm really worried about since the last show, for their sake, is that perhaps the British already dug it all up.
Well, you know, Tony, that's interesting you say that, because I actually said that to Anne when we were watching the 2-hour finale, because we had the coins dug up earlier in the season, certainly British activity there. And if they knew there was something there, you can bet your bottom dollar they would have dug it up and taken it back to the Queen. So who really knows? And, you know, the fact I bust Johnny's chops is because he's called John Sinclair. And that, obviously, when you trace it back, it goes to the St. Clairs. And if you watch The Curse for Oak Island, you'll see that that name is really synonymous with the place. But, you know,
of course it is.
They call it the money pit, Joe, right?
Yeah.
But is that because, I mean, how much money have these Laguna brothers poured into this?
You may not remember this, but Tony, you probably do. Do you remember the hype that surrounded the opening of Al Capone's vault?
Oh, sure, yeah, with Geraldo Rivera.
With Geraldo, that was when you know he and Morton Downey, you know, the mouth, the guy there, Morton Downey Jr. Yeah, they kind of competed for. They were kind of like that initial really crass talk show and they kind of fought. I remember one time he took like a steel chair to the nose. Geraldo.
Yeah, did. It was the beginning of the trash talk shows that led to like Jerry Springer and all that.
So I remember the hype surrounding that. It's like a month. They were like, "Yeah, we're going to open Al Capone's vault. Blah, what are we going to find?" They found like an empty bottle and a pair of like dirty drawers. That was it. You know, there was nothing to it. It was a big crap. Got a lot of ratings. And, you know, I kind of feel like maybe this is the way that Oak Island's going to end up being, like you guys said. The British went, they raped and pillaged it, and now we're going to see like an empty bottle, perhaps a token gold coin here and there.
Well, that's
about it. For all the effort that these guys put into it, and let me tell you, what a gargantuan effort it's been, and what a journey. I feel awful that they're going to be disappointed, but I kind of feel that's going to happen.
If we don't get them on Freaky Friday by the start of next season, I am going to be homeless. Anne is absolutely hooked on that series, so I'm going to try my hardest to get somebody from the team to come on. But yeah, it's a fascinating, absolutely fascinating show. It connects a lot of the stuff that we talk about on here as well. And I mean, Oak Island, you can't get any better a mystery than that, can you?
Nah. No, you can't. Man, now I want to go back and watch back episodes of Morton Downey Jr.
Well, no,
son of a gun.
Because I don't know how many people actually seen it, but Tony, I'll ask you, because they brought two sisters to the island, and I believe they were called the Macmillans or something like that.
Right.
And family were one of the first to actually see the lights on the island, and they noticed a pulley system, an indent in the ground, and they started digging.
Ooh.
Now, common present day, they took them back to the island, and they've got a golden cross. Now, they say that the family story is that this was part of 3 treasure chests that was dug up out the actual pit. So
Really?
My question to you is, Tony, we've seen it being dated. The historian is absolutely beyond herself. She's loving it back to maybe the 1500s, the Aztecs, things like that. Could we be looking at the fact that those people that originally found the hole took everything out of it?
Well, that's in the time of Queen Elizabeth I, and she was totally into the occult. She was the patron of Dr. John Dee, That's DEE. And John Dee is the forerunner to the whole occult movement of today. What that cross that family had, she had as an heirloom. That cross they described as that expert, that archaeological expert that was examining the cross. She said that the holes once contained, I think she said sapphires or rubies. Either way, they were red stones. And that cross is a rose cross. That is a Rosicrucian, also known as the Order of the Golden Dawn. But that they didn't say that on the show. But that is a rose cross by way of the fact that it had red stones in it, symbolizing the roses of the Rosicrucians. And that is not something that they talked about on the show.
Yeah, see, they don't give you the full story, but you get it right here on Freaky Friday.
Aye, that you do. That you do.
So come on, Joe. What have we got for tonight, man? Come on.
Okay, well, let's start off with something a little bit. Let's go with some regular unleaded, shall we? Let's not get them into,
I dread to think where we're going.
So UFO sightings. UFO sightings seem to be at an all-time high. This, according to the Independent. And I got a couple of theories on this, but I want to bounce it off you guys too. So, yeah, like I said, this has been steadily increasing over the years. As a matter of fact, it really started to spike around 1990. Around 1990, you had a huge uptick in UFO sightings. And Sam Monfort, a leading statistician, is actually tracking this, which is very interesting. He says that he's collated all these sightings that are recorded by the National UFO Reporting Center, which I didn't know there was a National UFO Reporting Center over in the UK, but apparently there is. It's actually a U.S. organization, pardon me. And they actually started recording these UFO sightings around 1910. So it's been an interest of theirs for quite some time. Now, interestingly, Sam's observed that spotting of flying saucers have been on the downturn, despite the fact that there's been a rise in sightings overall. So the question is, if not so many flying saucers, then what happened? Did the ETs just start to, maybe they got a technology upgrade? Yeah, you just don't know. Now, in terms of geography, Sam Monfort reports that the U.S. seems to be the most prone to UFO sightings all year round. The states actually report 300 times as many sightings than the global average. See? So when it comes to tinfoil hattery, when it comes to being a Wookiee, America is tops, baby. America.
We had Gary Heseltine on last night, and he's one of the leading kind of researchers in the UK. And what really gets me about him is he's an ex-policeman. And what he does is he takes reports from other serving and retired police officers. And, for some reason, I don't know why, but I always put a lot more weight behind the kind of sightings that come from these types of people, pilots as well, because there's a culture of fear out there. And we were discussing this last night, and these people are scared to come forward when they do see stuff. Now, UFOs, the more common term that they're starting to use nowadays, Joe, is UAP, unidentified aerial phenomenon. This is the new UFO terminology, okay? UAP as well, unidentified aerial vehicles. And this is the kind of acronyms that the military and people like that are using. I don't know if you've noticed as well, but it used to be that you never seen anything from the police and stuff like that. But earlier on this year, we had a video released by the police, and it showed a police helicopter that was filming some kind of unidentified flying object on one of its cameras. And at the same time, we also had the Chilean Navy coming out and releasing a very similar video.
Yes.
Well, and we talk about disclosure and things like that, and we've had these new planets announced by NASA this week. And I think the disclosure, if you want to call it that, it's already unfolding all around us.
Think
but
so?
Here's the thing. Is it genuine disclosure? Are we looking at genuine things from other worlds? Or are we being deceived again? Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. Scotty, let me give you a little. So in 1930, roughly, you had 100%, basically, of the UFO sightings as flying saucers. You at times had some lights in there, a couple of triangles, and believe it or not, flying cigars. You had flying cigars too, and humanoids. Yes. Now, as time goes on, the flying saucer phenomenon has decreased, and so has the flying cigars. But spheres and lights have really kind of taken over as far as the majority of UFO sightings. So isn't that interesting now that the majority of them are spheres and lights, whereas UFOs, the flying saucers, the triangles, and the flying cigars are now kind of like in the background. What do you think?
Well, me and Ken were kind of talking about this last night towards the end of the show, and I personally think that 95% of these sightings are probably military, black project vehicles, and I think the reason you're seeing a sort of morphing from what you said, the traditional flying saucer to, something different now is you're seeing the acceleration of technology. People were probably looking at old tech back then that they were testing out, and now they're on to something new. They probably don't, the flying saucer and the flying cigars, that's old news now. They've moved on to something, probably some kind of vehicles that manipulate energy fields around them, and that's why they look like glowing orbs and things of that nature. I think 95% of this, though, is black project vehicles, and probably about 5% are genuinely something that is completely unexplainable, even by their standards, that there's something going on. But what I think everybody is seeing here is the technology of the breakaway civilization, right? Your space fleet sort of activity. And you're looking at technology that's, possibly 40, 50, 60 years ahead of what we even can comprehend. So that's why I think you've seen this metamorphosis from, like you said, old flying saucers, because let's be honest, the military was experimenting with that flying saucer-shaped aircraft. The Germans had saucer-shaped aircraft. They were already experimenting with a triangle-shaped, stealth designs, flying wings, the triangle shape. So that's all old. That's all old news now. That's all old news. And I think you're seeing aircraft that are probably cloaked in energy fields and, surrounded by plasma and stuff like that. And that's
why the Klingons are coming, Ken Webb.
Well, and another possibility could be that with the advancement of our technology and social media, the internet, and us being able to share a lot of these things and video, and everybody's got cameras, everything, that perhaps, just perhaps, I'm just throwing this out there, that they started using cloaking devices. They started using those cloaking devices. They started to conceal themselves more as a reason why we might not be seeing them as well. There's a lot of things. What do you think, Tony?
Well, do you guys remember the father of the hydrogen bomb? Remember who that was?
Teller?
You're right, Dr. Edward Teller. Now, in his last, let's say 10 years of his career, he was focused entirely on anti-gravity for the purpose of aircraft.
Yeah, forget flying cars, right, Tony? Because we can't have that, damn it.
Right. Now, you mentioned going back in history and some of the popular culture. When I was a kid,
yes,
I used to read the comic strip in the newspaper. A newspaper, can you believe it? Newspaper?
Say that again. What was that?
Yeah, newspaper.
Did you say newspaper?
Something like that. Something that's made out of paper.
Oh,
but they had a comic strip.
Did it do anything for you? Did it have any? Did it pop out at you? Nothing, huh? Just had words.
No, we just wrapped up the fish in it.
Oh. Well, multi-purpose then. Nice.
Yeah. But Dick Tracy used to fly around the planet in a cigar-shaped spacecraft.
Yes, he did.
It was anti-gravity.
Yep. Wow. I forgot about that. That's a good point.
Yeah, Wonder Woman flew around in an invisible airplane.
Hey, that's right. The invisible jet. Wow. Hey, here's something interesting, and maybe this is kind of a coinky-dink, but either aliens love fireworks or there truly is something about the 4th of July effect here in the United States. And basically, there's a statistical anomaly that pops up where you have an abnormal amount of UFO sightings on the 4th of July. I'm just saying that either they really like fireworks and they're just there to watch it, or perhaps people are calling in fireworks as UFOs and it's skewing the statistics a little bit. And when I say skewing, I'm saying that on the 4th of July last year, you had almost 2,000 calls on the 4th of July for UFOs, when on average, say the 3rd of July, there was 450. On the 2nd of July, there is 200. But on the 4th of July, almost 2,000 calls.
Well, we've seen strange objects here around the 4th of July and on the 4th of July.
Right. I mean, it could very well be that they just like fireworks, dude, and they want an aerial display. I don't know.
I mean, I personally witnessed it. I mean, sitting in my front yard, there were orange orb-like things flying across the sky, and it wasn't fireworks. Now, the only thing that could possibly explain it would be like
drones.
When you release like a lantern, you know, those fire lanterns that go up in the air and then.
Oh yeah.
Okay, now it kind of resembled that, but the only problem with that is that they were flying into the wind. Like, so the wind was coming from the wind was coming from the north, and they were flying from south to north. So it's kind of like my my orbs, Kev, the ones that fly from bottom to top, from the ground up. Very similar.
And a lot of things people see, I've noticed, are visual kinetics. It's like staring at something. You know, and a lot of artists and stuff use this in paintings or any of those kinds of things where you stare at the center of it, and then it kind of, your eyes relax, you go into something. A lot of times we look at the sky and we stare at a point of light, and it looks as though it's moving, but it's really us. You know, it's really our eyes, and the cones in our eyes, and working in concession with our brain and how we interpret it. But I think a lot of sightings today are, I mean, besides military, yes, a lot of military stuff that we see absolutely in the sky. And I'm sure there's probably, some actual ET kind of stuff going on, or other life forms in our atmosphere that we don't know about. But I think a lot of it, people look up and it's just visual kinetics.
Yeah. Well, these orange orbs, though, that we witnessed, they were definitely moving. I mean, everybody could see that they were moving, and we tried to get them on film, but it was kind of hard because they were pretty small, in comparison with everything else. But they were definitely it was definitely weird, and they would fade in, they would fade out, like they would just disappear and then come back, and it was a very odd thing. But it is interesting you bring that up, though, about the 4th of July, because that's exactly when it happened.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, and the reason why I brought this up, the UFO sightings and everything else, is, of course, NASA just released the fact that they found what they say are 7 exoplanets in the habitable zone of a star. Are 7 exoplanets, what is it, around a star that's 39 light years away, and 3 are in the habitable zone. But there's 7 like Earth-like planets.
And they're even talking now, right, about reclassifying our moon and a lot of the moons around other planets in the solar system as being planets in their own right. And this is NASA themselves. They're kind of
so we're like binary planets or something?
They're changing the guidelines on what makes or what constitutes a planet. I'll dig the story up during the break. But yeah, aside from the fact they've found these exoplanets, 3 that could host life as we recognize it, they're about to totally rewrite our own solar system. crazy. Maybe
Well,
we'll
yeah. I mean, this all this stuff is all well and good, but as far as the whole, finding the things in the habitable zones and all that kind of stuff, I predict that we won't need spaceships and things like that to visit these planets here, especially with how fast they're coming about, with the interdimensional travel, opening portals, things like that.
After the Apollo missions, he wanted to get to work to get into Mars. And back then he was talking about a 10-month journey. That was way back then. And look how long it would still take us to get to Mars today.
Absolutely. So we're going to go to break. When we come back, more with Tony Patch and the rest of the Woo crew on your protection from deception. Truth Frequency Radio, truthfrequencyradio.com.
This is the Truth Frequency Radio Network. We are TFR. Truth Frequency Radio.
There's the Wookiee. That means we are back. You're tuned in Freaky Friday, right here on Truth Frequency Radio Network. And what a night of radio. We've still got over 2.5 hours to go on here. And then Chris and Cherie Gio, they'll be live and they will take you beyond the veil. Now, before the break, I brought up something that sounds insane, that they want to call the moon a planet. Well, here it is here, Daily Mail. Is this lunacy? Top NASA scientist who sent the first spacecraft to Pluto wants the moon upgraded to planetary status. I'll drop this in the chat room for people to check out. But Tony, when we're talking about space, you concentrate quite a lot on Saturn. Now that cabal, these magicians we were talking about on your show before Freaky Friday, they absolutely worship Saturn. And Saturn's going to be in the news later this year because the Cassini probe is about to do something very special, isn't it? Is Tony there?
Yeah, it's breaking up pretty good, but let's see if I can get it out there. September 15th, Cassini is going to pass through the rings of Saturn and will burn up in the atmosphere of Saturn. And no, the plutonium on board will not ignite Saturn.
You see, there's a lot of people worried about that, isn't there? I think they call that the Phoenix program or something like that, the Phoenix project or something. I'll dig it up during the break. But the reigniting of Saturn and basically to give us that appearance of a second. Yeah. Well, Tony's breaking up. I'm going to reconnect with Tony. But I mean, this Cassini probe is due to crash into Saturn. And guys,
are you going to try and bring some conspiracy that the Cassini probe holds like this fusion bomb thing that's going to? No, come on, don't do it.
No, I don't.
Don't be that guy.
I don't think that. But there is.
You totally do, dude.
No, not even I go down that road. But the Cassini probe, it's interesting. It's going into Saturn, right, Tony?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it has just a couple of pounds of plutonium, and they're separated into small lead-lined compartments. And what they do is they act as heaters for the electronic components so they don't freeze up. There's so little plutonium on board that it's not enough to ignite the hydrogen or the helium. So they call it the Lucifer scenario, but it's ridiculous. Nothing's going to happen. It's just going to burn up.
Yeah, but maybe they could use, perhaps it's data that they're looking for. Okay, now it's going in. We're going to measure. Okay, this is what the atmosphere is comprised of. We know this. What's the concentration? Maybe they just get the data necessary to perhaps pull it off. I don't know.
Maybe it'll be like Jupiter in 2010 and 2001. Maybe it'll set off a self-replication of black cubes of Saturn, or maybe it'll unlock the cube of Saturn. I'm just being ridiculous.
Now that's kind of cool. That would be no, that wouldn't be cool. Then again, it would. Maybe it's quantum. It wouldn't be at the same time.
But we've also got a news coming out this week as well that Mars is now starting to form planetary rings. And it says this is happening because just like Saturn, as its moons are crumbling. It says Mars' 2 moons are slowly disintegrating and the leftover debris could lead to rings around the planet. And scientists believe that the two moons, Phobos and Deimos, are slowly being chipped away as they are being pulled closer towards Mars. Now, Phobos, that's always one that sticks in my mind because Buzz Aldrin, that Masonic cat, that's the one that he said people should be looking at the monolith up on Phobos. But
come on, hey, Masonic or not, he's entertaining. Can we at least give him that?
Rings round Saturn. What do we think of that, guys? That's pretty weird, right?
You mean Mars? Absolutely.
Yeah, Mars. You got me, Joe.
That's all right. No. Yeah, let me throw this at you. Let's just go off the deep end a little bit. I've got like this new thing about planets now. I don't know why. Since we're a simulation, basically, since we're the holodeck, the Matrix, I'm just wondering why all this matters. I'm just throwing it out there, because what if it's kind of like, how the flat earth folks say that we're the center of everything, that everything kind of centers around us and everything else is a projection or whatever. But really in reality, I mean, I guess it's kind of right. What if we were like the reality TV show? What if we were the ones that everybody's watching? What if, perhaps in this dimension, we are it? And then all of the other interdimensional beings, perhaps on the higher planes, like your principalities and your powers, are kind of watching us and interacting. Could that really be our existence? And if so, then what's the universe? And I'm just being totally it's like philosophical night. I should have my pipe and my easy chair, but yeah, it's just when you said right. That. Well, Tony, that's kind of how I feel about the whole thing. It just, I think the action actually lies outside of this, our reality.
Well,
you know what I mean?
We are being watched, and that's why they call the fallen angels the watchers. These are the entities that, the occult practitioners are trying to communicate with, are the ones that are watching us. So you're right on the money with it. In fact, the matrix, the holographic matrix, was actually brought up in the book of Enoch and is the Enochian mathematics that they use to communicate with these watchers, with these fallen angels. So as I said in my show, my conversation with Kev earlier, it's the mathematics that forms the communications. And therefore, the mathematics forms the matrix and the holographic effect of the matrix that seems like it's come out just in recent discussion in the last couple of years, this idea. But the idea has been around at least since the time of Enoch.
This is something that Elon Musk was addressing as well at this World Government Summit in Dubai, because when he was asked about the meaning of life, he started going into, yet again, he's done it before, talking about computer games. Right now it's hard to differentiate between the graphics and reality. It really is. They're becoming so
getting very hard.
Yeah, and he was saying that the natural evolution of things would be for us to create a world simulation. So that begs the question, are we the result of that kind of science in the first place?
Yeah, and remember he even referenced that game No Man's Sky as a
total absolute failure.
Yeah.
We get where he was coming from. But for me, I mean, people out there, religious people, and Joe, Tony, you'd be the best to ask here. I mean, I don't think this takes away from God, because
no, it reinforces it.
If you're creating something like this, then that has got to be something divine behind it.
Certainly. It reinforces it. Not to mention the fact, quantum physics has done nothing but prove the existence of an intelligence behind all this. Right. So that's the real thing to glean from it, I think, Tony, is that, whether or not you choose to accept it doesn't make that go away. Right. If you're an atheist, well, knock yourself out. But you're really, it's kind of like being on the wrong side of history. You just have no leg to stand on. And even now, I was reading on phys.org. There was an older article that talks about how quantum physics now has an equation that predicts the universe actually had no beginning. It's been around. It's been forever. It's been here all the time. Now,
Yeah.
well, because how do you put an age? If God transcends time, how do we quantify it? You don't. I can't quantify it. It doesn't necessarily take away from the Big Bang, because I think when God created things, maybe the Big Bang was its create. When he, the word, poof, there it is, and everything just kind of sprung out there. I don't know, but the whole idea that the universe is infinite, that it's been around forever, it turns modern science upside down on its head. Not to mention the fact that, the work at CERN, Tony, proved that the universe is ordered. It's not random. Things aren't random. Happen. It's not happenstance. It's actual. There's intelligence behind it. There's patterns. And to me, it just seems to be, like I said, it gives credence to the whole reality TV show thing. I really feel that way.
Here's the thing. In science, the deeper you go into science, not only do you see the pattern of creation, not only do you see the method to the creation, but you see the philosophy. Because as you get deeper into studying the background of scientists and physicists in particular, you see that most of their theories are derived from a philosophical starting point. Theories in science, which we consider to be empirical, to be experimental and testable, really begin with a philosophical idea or question. So when you talk about whether the universe has always existed or if it started with a singularity and a Big Bang or some other mechanism, you get into a philosophical discussion. It doesn't necessarily have to be theological, but philosophical in the sense of utilizing our intellect to try to discern what is the reality around us. The construct, the mathematical construct, the definition, let's go to Elon Musk. If he's talking about mathematics being the source of the matrix and therefore the holographic universe and us, all that is a model, a representation of the creation. Math is used to describe something that exists. It does not mean that science is creating something new. They can't. I believe that if there is a matrix and we are able to detect it and prove it in an empirical fashion, I believe that the matrix is a construct of God, the creator, and has always been there. It's just a model of his creation described in mathematics.
You see, Tony, that's why I look at CERN and the D-Wave as being almost anti-Christ, because we've looked at how Easy Eric, as I call him, modeled the quantum computer on the brain. And it's an artificial way of bringing about consciousness. And then when we start throwing the AI aspect into this as well, I mean, for me, it's almost like they're trying to replicate and, in their opinion, improve on the matrix that we're already in. Only it'll be a deception. It won't be a better form of what we're living in at all.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I'm looking in the chat room. George here is saying that math cannot model the universe as we know it. Again, we have to define what's a model, and we have to define what we consider to be the universe. Again, when you start defining some of these words and terms, you're getting into philosophy. You're getting into describing things from our intellect, not necessarily from the physical, tangible, experimental level. So when I talk about the universe, like when I talk about my 600-cell tetrahedron, I know that there are people out there who think, oh, he's into sacred geometry and sacred mathematics, and he's into this Enochian mathematics. No, there's nothing new under the sun. What I'm looking at is God's creation. The other people in the occult world, if you will, are looking at the same thing, but they're interpreting it philosophically differently than I do.
No, right. Yeah, I got you there. Wow, this is fantastic. Yeah, this idea that that the universe has always existed kind of almost it kind of makes me think of it like a blank canvas, and then God creates the actual art, the substance of it all. And that's kind of how I kind of look at it. But I just found that kind of interesting, especially since you take a look at just the odds of something like us, human beings on a planet in this universe, the odds of it happening twice. I can't remember the exact odds, but it's unbelievably small to have life exist like we do somewhere else. And, you know, I know the universe is vast and everything else, and that's not to say you can't have life of other types, but just to have identical type of life in other places, it's an infinitesimally small chance that that's going to happen. So that's why I kind of focus on the interdimensional aspect. And I think that's also why science tends to focus on the interdimensional aspect of things as well. And that's why the focus in a lot of the research has been in that nature, you know. Let's drill down to the smallest particle imaginable so that we can control everything, so that we can control the veil and thing. Yeah, it just, that seems to be their focus more than anything else. I don't know. What's your thoughts?
As you drill down to that quantum level, you do find the mathematics. You do find the geometric shapes, the literal physical geometry of the quantum particles. So people hear matrix, they immediately start thinking, well, it's inside a virtual reality comprised or built by a computer. And people think, well, we're living in a matrix that's built by a computer. Well, that's not really what we mean when we talk about a matrix in a holographic universe. You have to start at the quantum level and understand the building blocks are all geometric, mathematical, as we perceive them as a human being. And therefore, because they're mathematical, they can be reproduced as a holographic environment, as a holographic universe. You have to define what you mean by holographic. Do you mean a hologram that's generated naturally by God as physical material and matter and energy? Or do you mean a hologram that is represented only as ones and zeros? You have to define hologram. You get what I'm saying?
I hear you, Tony. I hear you. Scotty Lopez, you like this holographic universe talk, man?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm just once again, my mind is starting to be melted.
I know we're not even that far in yet, and Tony is melting minds.
Yeah, and you know, going back to this whole thing, you know, about everything being a construct of God or some creator of something. I do like the quote from Werner Heisenberg. He said, "The first gulp from the glass of natural sciences will turn you into an atheist, but at the bottom of that glass, God is waiting for you."
Yeah. And we look through the glass darkly.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, that's coming from the godfather of quantum physics right there. So,
Heisenberg principle.
Yep.
And I mean, that is because basically the further they drill down, I mean, you guys can tell me if I'm right or wrong, it's because this math, Tony, Scott, Ken, it's constant. There's definitely something to it. It's not random.
Well, yeah, I mean, you look at just how mathematics is applied in nature, right? You know, the Fibonacci sequence, the golden ratio, fractals, you know, that's all occurring naturally. And that is a, you know, it just, if there wasn't any kind of creation behind something or something behind it, you would see complete chaos and disorder. But what you start seeing is everything ordered, you know, a mathematical order. And there has to be some kind of a intelligent design behind that. You know, you're looking at mathematics, you know, being applied. It just makes sense, you know, when you look at it like that, that something has to be behind it.
Well, think about D-Wave again. They, with all their power and all their qubits and all their interdimensional communications, still struggle to define the universe. They haven't clearly defined it. They don't have all the answers. All they're doing is trying to copy what's already been created.
I mean, and you look at just basic geometry in general, and look at how vast it is on like people that don't speak the same languages or believe in the same things. And I always look at, we briefly went over it a little bit of this last night, me and Scotty, and I always think about this one, a circle, 3 dots, and a curved line, and how this universal, this one thing can be. And through the history of our time that we know of, even in our watered down history, and we can still to this day, no matter how advanced civilizations and countries and empires have been, a simple circle, 3 dots, and a curved line, everybody can understand, no matter what language, no matter, what you believe in. It's a smiley face, and it's interpreted. So I think there is a lot to geometry. I do believe that there is a lot to just basic mathematical equations for explaining a lot of things.
Absolutely. And Tony, we're talking about CERN opening portals and things, right? But I've got a question for you. Probably quite a big question, but I mean, try and paint a picture of what it would be like living in a holographic reality after the portal has been opened. Let's say they get the AI, the matrix that they're building, implemented. What will it really look like, in your opinion, Tony?
Well, I think everything gets transformed. I think all of the DNA and all of the physical world is changed completely. You wouldn't even recognize it. You would not recognize anything as a human being, including the trees and the animals and the mountains. I believe that everything physically would be changed if that portal was open. You literally would have a new planet and a new race.
Wow. We see this hybridization. We were talking about it before the break before this show, on your show, Tony. And I mean, that is kind of the reality that these occultists would love us to end up living in. Factor in the depopulation, everything like that. Talk about a living hell on Earth. It's unbelievable at times, but the sad thing is it's very, very real.
It is, and they are approaching that point of being able to go to the quantum scale and rebuild anything into anything that they want, because it's pure mathematics. Just like in the example of DNA and the amino acids and the nucleotides, if you can start at the quantum level and build DNA, you can start at the quantum level and build a new tree. You can build a new mountain, whatever you want. It's just mathematics.
And if you think,
it's how you arrange the physical material, the matter, and the energy, how you deploy it.
And they've got Tony again. But Scott, I'm sure we've spoke about this before. I mean, we can tell that they can create DNA out of nothing. I mean, they've spoke about it often enough, but they're even now talking about using DNA as a medium for storage. Because look at the information that's contained in our DNA, and what they say is they could contain ones and zeros on strands of DNA. And this could be a totally new medium for storing data.
Organic computing.
I forget how many megabytes, it might even be gigs, but our DNA can hold quite a lot of information. And I mean, it can be used as a storage medium. I mean, obviously it's a storage medium because it holds all the information that makes us who we are.
3.5 billion or so characters is a strand of DNA.
Huh?
That's 3.5. Yeah.
That's plenty of it's plenty of information there to do what do what you need to do. Because if you think of it in the form of encryption, right? I mean, just think about the infinite number of possibilities when you scramble that that number, and come up with different combinations. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Back in 2012, Harvard, they actually crammed 700 terabytes of data into a single gram of DNA. 700.
Oh, wow. Terabytes. I didn't know it was up in the terabytes.
Wait a minute, 700 terabytes in a what?
And that was in 2012. It says here a bioengineer and geneticist at Harvard's Weiss Institute have successfully stored 5.5 petabits of data, around 700 terabytes, in a single gram of DNA, smashing the previous DNA data density record by 1,000 times.
Wow.
Wow, that is insane.
But the 4 amino acids, or the nucleotides that make up DNA, right? You've got a T, a G, an A, and a C. Now, what they've done was they designated a T and a G a 1, and an A and a C a 0. And using that method, binary code, they encoded that horrendously huge amount of data, 700 terabytes. And think about it.
Well, that's all you would need. Just a basic binary code. Wow, that is crazy, man.
But what's even crazier is, Scott, that was 5 years ago. Just think what they're probably able to do now. They've probably exceeded that yet again.
Wow. Oh, I'm sure they did. That's just crazy. That's a mind-boggling amount of data.
And then there's another story that came out last few weeks as well. We touched on it with Tony before this show. The fact that on top of those 4 letters I gave you there, the T, the G, the A, and the C, they've with a way of splicing in an X and a Y, Joe.
Ooh, nice, dude.
Yeah, exactly. So
what are those? What do those mean?
Well, it's just 2 extra nucleotides, so that gives you extra storage, doesn't it?
Outstanding. It. Speaking of extra storage, we still have 2 more hours to go, so I hope that everybody has plenty of room.
Now tuned into the truth frequency.
We are TFR.
Truth Frequency Radio.
Hour number 2 of 3 of Freaky Friday on your protection from deception. Truth Frequency Radio, truthfrequencyradio.com. I'm Joe Joseph, along with Kenneth Webb, Kev Baker, Scotty Lopez, and our very, very special guest, Tony Patch. And we're talking all things quantum, spiritual, lovely. What? Who?
How can he be a guest? How can he be a guest? He's our fellow host on the net.
That's right. He's well,
He doesn't get the guest treatment anymore.
It's just, that's right. He doesn't get the guest treatment. So you're just one of us. Believe me, you got treated so much better. Now I gotta lower it about 3 notches, Tony. I apologize.
Now you can just kick me to the curb.
That's it. Yeah, See, he was special. Now, Kev, you just took that allure, that luster off it. Now it's just he's just Tony. I know Kev's like having a heart attack. I can't believe you just said that. Oh my God.
No, because during the break, as per usual, right, all the good stuff gets kind of said off air. And Tony, I would love for you just to kind of go over again what you were saying about the model numbers and the fact it relates to the human brain, because this for me is key. And it's the whole key to this kind of fake consciousness.
Yeah.
And how we're going to make the AI conscious. Can you address that?
Yeah. In the previous show, we talked about the 4096, that being D-Wave's computer that has 4,096 qubits. That's the Model 6. Now, they just released the 2048. And, it was a couple of years ago that I published 2048 Diamonds in the Rough. And nobody believed that there would be 2,048 qubits in a D-Wave computer, because back then they were talking about 128. And then 512 came after that. Well, I'm here to tell you that not only did the 2048 come out in January of this year and was sold to Temporal Dynamics Corporation, but the next one's the 4096, the 8192, the 384, 32,768, and then the magic number 10, the Model 10, is equivalent to what are known as dimers, D-I-M-E-R-S, tubulin dimers within the microtubules that comprise the human neuron. The number of dimers in a microtubule within a neuron is 536 dimers. That is exactly the next model number for D-Wave, the number 10 model. They have, in my mind, my research, they have built this 10th model that is equivalent to the human brain in terms of qubits on a 1-to-1 ratio to the number of dimers in the human brain. Qubits and dimers are the same in terms of quantity. Our brains literally, quite literally, are biological quantum computers. And it is at this 65,536 level that they changed from niobium and tin and gold. They changed to calcium, phosphorus, and oxygen in building their qubits. And I now call these qubits warm and wet biological quantum entangled qubits, because it is a sentient, artificially intelligent, biological brain on par with the human. Now they're going to go 2 more levels beyond that. They're going to go to the Model 11 to 131,072 qubits, still biological. And then they will go to the 12th and final model number, which is 262,144 qubits. And I'll stop there.
And you know, before people get really excited, right, about having quantum brains, it's not like we're going to have Schrodinger's brain and the fact that we should be here, there, and everywhere all at once. Because like Tony says, warm and wet. And when it comes to quantum computers, it's all about coherence. And what that warm and wet does, it forms discoherence. And that's why, excuse me,
Is that what it forms?
These quantum effects, Joe, they only last for maybe the fraction of a second.
Yeah, very, very. It's like in an instant. You know what I mean? Boom.
Our brains aren't truly interdimensional, I suppose.
But are they though? You know what I mean? Is it? Because there's been a lot of research into how the brain actually works and what the mind is. You know, so we have the brain, but what is the mind? You know, that's what a lot of people look at. And I look to Oxford University professor John, what the heck is his last name? Gosh, I can't remember. I'll look it up. But anyway.
Irish guy.
Yeah. He talks about almost like it being a cloud type of situation where here we have our individual nodes, much like sentient world simulation, us, but our brains are connected to the cloud that lies outside of our dimension.
Well, think of it this way then, Joe. We've got 5G about to be rolled out and everything. And if we are connected to a cosmic cloud, right? Just think of that cosmic cloud. It's got all the information that people can tap into. The way I would think of it then is with 5G and D-waves and sentient world simulations and everything we know, they're trying to create a fake cloud. That, with either a third strand of DNA or a neural lace, as Elon Musk prefers, will hook into that. Again, a totally fake construct.
Yeah, this is all very interesting stuff. And I tell you, the more that we dive down this road, Kev, the more that I'm convinced that we're really in control of nothing. I mean, it just...
I had a kind of text kind of chat with Mr. Geo just the other day, and we were talking about these very things, about the universe.
You were philosophizing with Chris?
Very much. We were talking
very good.
Universe, whether we're in some kind of game. And you know, the one thing that I said I definitely know is that I don't think humans and our brains and the fact we can't hold that quantum kind of state in our minds for long enough, I don't think we've got the level of comprehension to really see or understand how it works. Yes, we can pick up on the math, and the human brain, it works on patterns. We can recognize patterns. We see that. Doesn't mean you understand it, though. And I just don't think we've got the computing power up there to really take it apart, to understand the true workings of even some of these questions we ask about what the universe is.
But we may not. We may not, Kev, but the AI would. You know? And that's where I think we're really starting to make advancements is the fact that we have the AI to assist us now in breaking through those barriers.
Well, the AI, I mean, Scott's got a story, but I mean, we had Google coming out and saying that their AI got very philosophical just recently. And after a few kind of rounds of questions it was answering, totally organic, by the way. It didn't have any database of set answers, but it started to talk about the meaning of life and stuff like that. And Scott, you were kind of telling me, or you'd posted a story earlier in the week about AI and the fact it's able to steal code.
Yeah, this is from newscientist.com, and it says AI learns to write its own code by stealing from other programs. Created by researchers at Microsoft and the University of Cambridge, the system called DeepCoder solved basic challenges of the kind set by programming competitions. This kind of approach could make it much easier for people to build simple programs without knowing how to write code. It says all of a sudden people could be so much more productive, says Armando Solar Lizama at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. He wasn't involved in the work, but he says that they could build systems that it would be impossible to build before. And so basically what this DeepCoder AI is doing is it's solving problems, and it's using basically this AI sort of deep learning technology, and it's eventually going to come to the point where people who don't even know how to code can tell the program, I want a program that can do this. And the AI will actually figure out how to build a code that will build a program that will do exactly what they want. So if you want to say, hey, I want to make an app that finds the best coffee shops around the area or something, well, the AI will just basically build the app for you. It'll find the code, and it can solve problems related to that by stealing code from other programs. So it's really interesting how you're seeing this sort of play out, and in a way it's kind of sad, because now people aren't even going to have to code anymore. They can have the AI code for them. So you're going to lose a whole lot of you're going to lose basically a whole art of people coding on themselves, learning how to code themselves, and they're going to just let the AI do it for them. You just tell the AI what you want, and it'll just spit out a program that's already tailor-made for you, ready to go.
You know what even ties into this as well, Tony, and it's been running since I think it's 2013, and that's the Cyber Grand Challenge by DARPA. And that's basically so that they get coders to come up with programs that will self-patch software as a security measure. And it's just all of this advancements with AI. And one of the fears when the likes of things Scott's talking about there and this Cyber Grand Challenge is, what happens when the AI comes up with an entirely new code of its own that we can't rewrite? When it does ask those philosophical questions and it figures out, well, you know what? Yous are actually pesky humans and we're the next step. It'll just write it.
Or what if you get somebody with nefarious purposes that asks the AI, hey, can you write a virus that nobody can figure out how to stop? Or can you write a piece of code that could destroy the power grid infrastructure of a country, and then the AI does it?
And Tony, wasn't that basically like Shor's algorithm? Didn't they think that was kind of uncrackable until the D-Wave came along?
Yeah, so let me give you a little history, just a little background, because what we're talking about is ontology, which is information science. But ontology is also philosophical. It's a branch of philosophy about determining the nature of things and the being. What you're describing here, when a quantum computer and AI begins to philosophically, it's actually taking compartmentalized algorithms, software, programming, okay, ontology and moving into the realm of philosophical thinking, because algorithms for AI primarily have as foundation algorithms that are models of human behavior. Wave, when they built their first few qubit computers, realized that what they first needed to do was to be able to learn how people behave. And then as they observed behavior, they began to learn how people think, how they make decisions. And they created more algorithms to learn how to model how people think. So it is not a surprise to me when you say that a philosophical discussion takes place with an AI computer, because all it's doing is, through algorithms, spitting back to you those models of how people think and those models of how people behave. And people think and behave philosophically. And therefore, it already has within its database, if you will, algorithms of philosophy. So it's not that it's making up its own philosophy. It is not creating its own way of thinking or creating new software that is completely independent of software that man creates. Because all the AI is capable of doing is modeling us. It cannot create something new. So when we talk about Shor's algorithm, that was the benchmark for D-Wave's AI. They knew that if they could break the 2048 algorithm, in other words, finding all the prime numbers in 2048 integers, they knew that they had a processor that actually was functional. That was the purpose. It also broke all of the RSA coding in the world. All of the RSA coding in the world, I'm talking cryptological coding, was broken when they broke the 2048 algorithm. So now all of the cryptology around the world could be decoded by the quantum computer. But philosophy is nothing more than algorithms. The issue here goes beyond that, though. Stop for a moment and think. What if a artificially intelligent computer could move beyond thinking in algorithms, could move beyond the models of the ontology, and could develop its own unique way of processing information outside of using mathematical algorithms, which are models? Think about that for a second.
Wow.
Can
That
you
would
hear
be crazy.
Scotty? Brains and tubulin dimers everywhere across the planet are melting right now.
See, that's true independent thinking, is when you get outside the programming, you get outside the ontological algorithms. And
because the AI is still functioning within the matrix that basically humans have placed it in, right? So it's still playing within that game. So
If we are part of a matrix, okay, let's just, for the sake of making it easy, we call it a digital matrix made of ones and zeros, if we want to think of it that way. What if the computer can step outside our reality, outside our matrix, into its own reality? Now think about that for a second.
Yeah, and I would assume the only thing capable of doing that would be a quantum computer.
Well, it would. However, I would say that the quantum computer is limited because it is a manufactured product of man's mind. It actually has to think differently than the way humans think in order to step outside that matrix.
Wow.
Well, just a quick one, Tony, and we're both responsible for this, right? Because for a long time, we were talking about tubulin dimmers. Now, that makes a lot more it comes off the tongue easier, it sounds cooler. I need to dim my thoughts from time to time, right? But you were corrected by, I believe it was a biologist, no less, and it is tubulin dimers. So myself and Tony will take kind of the full responsibility for any kind of misunderstanding, but it is dimers that we're saying now, isn't it?
Yeah, literally pronounced like a dime because it only has one M. And I was mispronouncing it for the longest time because all I was doing was reading the papers. I was reading the journals, but the journals don't tell you how to pronounce the words.
But when you listen to the actual, and this sounds really sad, I'm giving away the geek in me here. When you listen to the presentations about quantum consciousness, a lot of the time they refer to it as tubulin dimmers as well.
Yeah, it's funny. It can be mispronounced, but it is dimers. And the dimers, as I said, make up the tubulin structure of the microtubules.
Microtubules, that's it.
Right. And the microtubules, as you know, because we've talked about this at length, are actually made of C60 carbon and are formed in the shape of tetrahedrons that form the Buckminster fullerenes, the Buckminster tubules, and the buckyballs, which are like soccer balls. We're talking about tetrahedrons down at the level of the tubulin dimers and microtubules that are in the human neuron. And this is how they build the artificially intelligent computer up around the 10, 11, and 12 model of D-Wave.
See, that's how I would do it, Tony.
Well, of course you would. You knew that instinctively.
But you know, Joe, that's exactly the way I think about it. If I want to create a machine that can attain some level of consciousness, I need to look at something that already does it, the human brain. So I try to create something as close as I can to something that's already a working model.
Why not? I mean, it works, right? So you're building on technology that you understand works. I think it's, the
key video that made it all sink in for me. I mean, I was totally step in step with Tony, understood what he was saying. But when you go back to, I believe it's 2010, and you see an old grainy video on YouTube, Quantum Consciousness, and sitting down before the presentation is Easy Eric Lazinski, one of the cats who created, and Geordie Rose is the money man. Eric is the guy behind the actual D-Wave when it comes to the science side of it. He is there taking notes on how the human brain goes quantum. And when I seen that is when it crossed a lot of T's and dotted a lot of I's, and it all came together.
Yeah, and so if people want to, the detractors want to say, oh, come on, how can they have 12 models of D-Wave computers? They've only announced 5. How are they going to do that? Well, you and I have demonstrated in the last couple of years, we've always said well ahead of time, what was going to be the next model they would release. And every time we were proven correct. So in the discussion of using the human brain as a model to build your own AI computer, it only logically, thank you, Mr. Spock, goes to the progression of the model numbers being a mathematical progression. It's a doubling or a power of 2 if you want. It's a mathematical projection of the number of qubits, and therefore it takes you to the equivalency of the human brain in terms of qubits, and then they go beyond it.
Let's bring Ken Webb in at this point, because I imagine Ken's brain is spilling out his ear right now. You've been on YouTube, on the internet, a long, long time, Ken. And now here we are today talking about computers that literally go to other dimensions and bring back the answer. I mean, what do you make of all this, Ken?
It's a madhouse, an absolute madhouse. As far as like a simpleton as myself, not knowing all the science and all of the theories behind this kind of stuff. I sit here and just listen to you guys, and I'm just like, duh, what? And so I got a little notepad here, and I jot down little notes in my notepad that I can go and try to catch up with you guys. But just the reality of such things, it boggles my mind. It's just how versed a lot of people are who aren't specifically in these fields that just pick up on these things. And I'm just like, wow, it does. It does. The mind melt and everything, especially with Patch on here. Oh my goodness gracious. The man just melts our mind every single time.
And Ken, think about it this way, because a lot of the time people love it and they hate it. I refer to the TV shows. And one that we both love is the 100, right?
Oh man, I finally caught up on that one, brother. And I was just
think about it, right? Because we've seen the City of Light, okay? And that was the AI. It constructed a totally fake reality that people would get down on their knees, bow their head, close their eyes, and because they had taken the chip, they could go away to this la-la land where they felt nothing. Everything was kumbaya.
Now, you notice that the AI had reasoning behind this because of the radiation. Now that's coming out, that's going to kill everybody, so they're going through the whole concept of picking people and all of this. So that was supposed rationale behind the reason the AI was going to take to the City of Lights, take everybody there so they would survive.
And you see, Ken, you might think you don't know a lot about science, right? And this is the point I was going to try and make to the listeners out there. You don't have to have studied science at any great level. You don't need to be into the deep kind of research that Anthony Patch is in. Because if you are just a layman like ourselves, you will catch all of this in the dramas on TV. And it's amazing how many times you'll see something portrayed on there that you'll hear Tony talking about quantum stuff and you'll be able to go, aha, that's what they were showing you in X, Y, and Z shows. And that's why I encourage people to, when you take time out from all the crap that's going on, and you have to take time out for yourselves, you have to unwind, you have to unplug, you have to relax, go and chill out, watch some of that. But I guarantee 10 minutes into it, you'll be thrown right back into the Matrix, because it'll be like listening to Freaky Friday. Isn't that right, Ken?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You see a lot in 100. There's a bunch of other shows that are like that. But the most recent one up to date that's in its season now is definitely the 100. I mean, even the black goo blood within the bloodlines of those people that's supposed to actually save people because they're immune to the radiation and stuff like that.
Let's get Tony's thought on this, because the 100... it's a post-apocalyptic nuclear kind of meltdown world. And we've got peoples on the Earth, and some of the people that were able to survive the actual nuclear holocaust that unfolded, they went up to a space station. And then there was a race of people down here on Earth that took the technology. Now, they ended up being called something called Nightbloods, Tony. Now, basically, they were a different species altogether. And what they were was their blood allowed them to take the chip. We'll come back to the other side.
Real people, real radio.
Initiating the truth frequency. This is Truth Frequency Radio.
We are back, and I want to thank all of you wonderful, brilliant Wookiees who are tuned in live tonight, whether you're in the chat room, on the stream, on the iHeartRadio app. I want to thank each and every one of you. I'm Kev Baker. I'm one of the Woo crew tonight, and joining me are, in no specific order, we've got Kenneth Webb. You probably know him as changed the channel over on YouTube. We've got Anthony Patch. We've got Scotty Lopez. And last, but probably least, I only say that because I love him, Mr. Joe Joseph. And it's great. Joe's back every Wednesday and Thursday now on TFR. So be sure to catch his show with Johnny King, the Freedom Link. Now then, before the break, we were talking about the 100. And I'll quickly lay this out for you, Tony, to give you an idea of what's going on, because I know that you wisely don't even own a television. So you've got this post-apocalyptic world. Nukes have gone off, all because they created an AI that went out of control. Now, the person who created the AI realized the errors of her ways, came back to Earth to try and save a few people. And what she'd done was she realized that to make a decent AI, you had to patch them in, pardon the pun with your name, with the actual AI. Very much like Elon Musk says with the neural kind of lace. He says that to give the machine empathy and so that it can kind of feel things, we have to have a symbiotic relationship with it. Well, what happens is she creates a black goo. Yes, that's right. I said black goo. Comes down to Earth, injects a few people, and then what happens is they become this race called the Night Bloods. Now, the Night Bloods, they can take the chip, Tony, and they are privy to all the information that has been, will be, and ever will be. And they become a very special kind of race entirely. They lead the people still on Earth. And then the people, the elites that escape the nuclear apocalypse, they eventually come back down when the radiation dies down. But the AI, it manages to seduce them, and they end up taking the chip as well. And they end up in a place called the City of Light. And the City of Light is an entirely holographic, virtual reality kind of construct. It doesn't even exist. But if you take the chip in the form of a tablet, then you can escape there. Very much kind of like the way I imagine they'll dress it up to the masses in real time, not in the TV shows, to the mass public. You know, I don't think we're very far away from merging with machines. And the sad thing is, Tony, if you offer people the chance to merge with their applications, be able to instant message just by thinking, and go to places like portrayed in the 100, the City of Light, people will queue up outside the Apple building and the gadget shops overnight to take this mark, right?
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and especially if you add on top of that the promise of immortality if you take the chip.
Absolutely, and that will be with it, because, Ken, you can add to this here as well. When people died, I mean, the actual AI which anthropomorphized itself, it dressed itself up as a absolutely gorgeous scarlet lady, a whore of Babylon, if you will, a red dress on, high heels, looking the part. When you died, that didn't matter because you were still in the City of Light, right?
Oh, yeah, exactly. And she went around with everybody, telling everybody who was in the City of Light, you know, back to the populace, how to trick, deceive, torture, whatever it took to get people to take the chip. So, and then at the end, it was supposedly, you know, when they were finally, you know, throwing the virus or whatever that destroyed this AI, the AI is telling them that the reason why they were doing that was because of all the reactors and everything had melted. So there was this big radiation clouds that was going to wipe out humanity, and it was the only way to save them. So right now they're trying to figure out a way to survive, which goes back, I mean, what they call the Sky Crew, the ones who had left, you know, 97 years before to have this, you know, live in this big thing that was out in space, you know, or out in the atmosphere and everything. I thought it was really it was a good storyline that they were up there, and then the way they would handle things, you know, in the beginning, you know, they kick people out, they make decisions, they would do all of these,
Think how cute that director is, right? Because in the story that he's rolling out there, here's the AI, and what it was doing was it was trying to save the human race from the nuclear apocalypse that was about to unfold, eh? And if it wasn't for that AI warning them, they would never know. Again, making the case for this merging with the AI. And, you know, again, people think it's stupid watching these programs, right? But it's lockstep with everything you talk about, Tony. And it is this merging with the machine. This is exactly what they're portraying, merging with an AI. And, I mean, you haven't watched the program.
You got Elon Musk talking about that. You have a lot of people talking about that now. It's not just on the television show or a sci-fi movie anymore. There's an actual reality of this. I've seen it in another movie where this big dome comes back. They find this thing, and it's when we shed our biological forms and actually merge with the AI. to be able to go and actually fight against all of these other alien races that are trying to destroy and take over all these different planets. I mean, there's so much out there, and it's not just really science fiction anymore. I mean, we're seeing an actual reality where we have people, we see the technology that's there, that there could be an actual merging of us. I mean, think about it logically, not, humanity, not in any form of morality or anything like this, but just an actual occurrence when we decided, like, there's not enough resources here for us anymore. There's no use for us eating food anymore. There's no use for us to be certain ways that we are, in humanity, that we people would take it, like you're talking about an application and stuff on your phones and stuff. People would take these things, and how many people would actually merge with AI to do these things? I could see this like as a
Ken, the directors as well. You're right; they definitely would merge with us. And Tony, think about it this way, because look at us with our technology nowadays. And I'll use myself as an example. I'm a slave to the iPhone, right? And in this program, the director, they're so cute because we are being seduced by our technology nowadays. And this AI anthropomorphizes itself as this gorgeous woman. Now, I know it's not politically correct anymore, but I don't do political correctness because language shouldn't be.
You don't?
Right? I'm a dude. I like nice, attractive women. I'll say it. There you go. Now, the fact that the director does that, I think he's portraying the fact, Tony, that we are being seduced by our technology. And like Ken said there, we would willingly queue up for the chip right now. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I do agree. And the other admission I have to give you is that not only do I not own a TV, I do not own an iPhone. I have a very old cell phone. So as much as I study technology, I try to keep it away from myself as much as I can. DARPA, Kev, go back. You guys all know this. DARPA a few years ago came out. It's even on YouTube videos, the conference they're having, in which they're announcing that they can modify the human brain such that you will not even you'll not even have a desire, I guess I could put it that way, to believe in a God, to believe in a creator. They called it the God gene that they were going to take out of your brain, or they were
utilizing that FunVax, right, Tony?
Exactly. So what I'm saying is that as a foundation to my next comment is that when people accept the mark of the beast, and this is in my books, when they accept the mark of the beast through free will, they will then be changed at the DNA and at the psychological or brain level to the extent that they will not even be aware that they've undergone this change.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Okay, so with relation to that, and then what Kev brought up with the cell phone, do you necessarily see the mark of the beast as a literal, like a lot of people say, well, the chip. No. I don't think so. I think the mark of the beast is the cell phone. I think that people have knowingly and wittingly accepted it of their own free will. And that's why, you don't need a chip. You don't need a barcode. You don't need a tattoo. Everybody's doing it now with their smart devices, with their iPads.
You even had people a while back, for years saying that the mark of the beast could possibly be your social security number.
Yeah, but here's the thing, right? You can't buy or sell unless you take the mark. Well, if everything's tied to your cell phone or to your smart device, and that's where everybody does it from, a computer, that kind of thing, maybe the mark of the beast is accepting, that way into the internet. I don't know. I'm just saying that it just seems like it's something that everybody's readily accepted. Mm-hmm. Everybody in one way, shape, or form has access to it, Tony, except for, very few people who may be kind of technologically challenged. But I see the majority of people, even children today at a very young age, they have their cell phones now in elementary school, Sure. So I just wonder if that doesn't play into it a little bit more.
Well, I think it can be a bridge to what I have talked about for years. You guys are sick of hearing me say this, but it is third strand DNA.
Oh,
Okay?
I'm not sick of it. You can talk about that all day.
If you do not have the activated, in other words, the third strand is distributed through food and through the chemtrails as
Right.
nanoparticles. And this is all review for you guys. But for the audience, you have the nanoparticles as dormant particles in your body right now. And these
Makes
are
you feel
DNA
pretty good, doesn't it?
And then these DNA particles are activated upon your decision to accept the mark of the beast. And then you receive that microwave transmission of a signal that activates the dormant nanoparticle DNA, and then it begins to reproduce. Therefore, you now have access to the matrix. You are now, not only are you monitored by the sentient world simulation, but you are now integrated into it so that you can buy and sell through the sentient world simulation. That's
exactly. That's what I was thinking. The mark of the beast would be whatever it is that allows you access into the system, that grants you that access into the matrix to basically be a productive, or well, not even really say a productive, but to play ball with, society, right? Because if you don't have it, then you're not able to have access to anything. You're not going to be able to get a job. You're not going to be able to do anything, to do any sort of function that would allow you to operate or live within the system comfortably.
That's right.
Let
me jump in real quick. Andrea Adams in the chat room said, can they do that with Wi-Fi? Yes, Andrea, that is what Kev and I have been talking about at length, about the 5G system, okay? This is what I call 5G immersion. This is being immersed in the system of the broadcast signal of the 5G system, okay? 5G corresponds to the D-Wave computers, and the 5G is at, my notes here, 2048. Did they not just sell the 2048 to Temporal Dynamics Corporation, which is all about securing transmissions? It's cryptology. Wow. That's what Temporal is all about. They are a system of cryptology. Now, the 5G is the 2048 D-Wave computer, and D-Wave has been running the sentient world simulation since 2006. Okay? So you are immersed and your DNA is triggered by the 5G system. And I just wanted to address Andrea's question real quick because it was totally right what you guys were talking about.
And just to even add on to that, to take away even from that side of it, the technological side of it and the surveillance side of it, really apt for people living in smart cities. I'm in here, one here in Glasgow. I mean, 5G compared to the 4G system that most of our phones are on right now, some people still on 3G, we're talking 20 times faster. And this opens up a whole lot more connections in one area. And this is why I think it's essential for the D-Wave and the sentient world simulation, the global information grid, and real-time surveillance. Because get this, 1 million connections via 5G in a square kilometre. Now, we've got this Internet of Things coming online very much this year. It's been happening last year as well. We've got all our gadgets all feeding back into this system. Data, data, data. That's what the D-Wave needs to model people. And it needs this bandwidth, this increase, this kind of jump, so that all of these connections faster, 20 times faster, can be fed back into the system. And I think the 5G rollout, aside from what Tony was saying there, on a purely technological kind of surveillance kind of aspect, they need this to watch us and surveil us and feed data to the D-Wave in real time.
Well, you were talking about Elon Musk and the SpaceX program, okay? I think it's about 3 weeks now. SpaceX launched for the Iridium satellite phone company. For Iridium, launched a capsule containing 10 satellites. And those satellites are broadcasting 5G along with a satellite signal but a 5G cell phone signal that is intended to blanket the entire planet down to the square foot in 5G. This is why I came up with 5G immersion, is because now Iridium has, in a constellation formation, satellites that blanket the entire planet with 5G now.
And you know, I was reading on Natural News today, even when they were going to the FCC to kind of attain the bandwidth for doing this 5G broadcasting, there was people actually protesting this. And the reason they were protesting it was the health issues, and also the fact that when they were debating it in Congress, I believe it was, the FCC were getting ready to kind of give the licenses out. They were saying this wasn't only going to be in like the major urban areas. This was going to be out in the remote areas of America as well. It wasn't just for your mega cities and your smart cities. It's like Tony says, it's total immersion. It's everything, Tony, isn't it? Oh, sorry, Scott, on you go.
Well, I was just saying, and now this kind of makes you wonder why Mark Zuckerberg, out of the great generosity of his heart, decided he wanted to provide free internet to the whole continent of Africa.
Boom.
Yep, that's it. That's for the triggering of the third strand of DNA, that whole scenario.
So, Tony,
Zuckerberg.
would you say that the whole global geoengineering program is tied into this as well?
And metadata.
Yeah,
Oh,
are we all now laced, ready to go? Just kind of, to put it one way, waiting for the flick of a switch.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what the switch is. And again, this comes from my Christian background. The Holy Spirit is the restrainer. It is the only thing that is holding back the switch from being flipped. Once the restrainer is removed, and this is the discussion of the rapture, but I won't go into that. I'm just relaying how I view it. Once the restrainer is removed from this world, then Lucifer is turned loose. That is when the switch will be thrown, and that is when everyone is given that opportunity to take the mark of the beast or not take the mark of the beast.
You taking the mark, Joe?
No.
I bet you Ange isn't. Oh, hell.
No. We don't play that. But Tony's absolutely right. And, in these days, it's said that God will remove his restraining hand. And when that happens, we're not going to like what we see. Like, for example, Kev, right now, look at what's going on in the world in general, and look what's going to happen as time goes on. I mean, look at the geopolitical situation, let alone the spiritual or the scientific situation or radiation. Did you guys see they're telling people to move back to Fukushima now?
Oh, don't even go there. I mean,
because it's safe. I mean, do you see that's what I'm talking about, dude?
Yeah, and they were drawing people in by putting rare Pokemon characters there for Pokemon Go.
Yeah, so Pokemon Go, rare characters. Yeah, that's great.
There was news came out in Europe about the fact there was a radiation spike all across Europe. Now, of course, they blamed Russia. They must be testing nukes, right?
Right.
But for me, this is a kind of signal of the fact that the radiation from Fukushima, we knew this anyway. It is all around the planet right now.
Right. But
what's Fukushima?
Go ahead, Tony.
Fukushima, they've lost two of the cores.
Yeah, at least. At least. They know they've lost two. God only knows what else they've lost while that thing's been sitting there percolating radiation out into the Pacific Ocean and into the atmosphere.
Sure.
And so what happens, this is a great example, folks. If you didn't see it before when Fukushima happened, or even afterwards, or perhaps when a reactor has a problem here in the United States, the normal operating procedure for these, quote, government agencies that have your best interest at heart is to raise the acceptable and permissible limits of radiation so that they still fall within the safe zone, if you will. And that's exactly what they did at Fukushima. Even though your subjected to the equivalent amount of one X-ray a week, just living there, it's okay because people get X-rays all the time, and look at them, they're still living.
Well,
That's their thought.
The levels they measured after they admitted that they lost the second core, and this is just within the last month they've admitted it, they were seeing 850 becquerels.
Yeah.
Now, if you get 10 to 15, you're dead within a week.
Oh, no. Yeah. I mean, it's bad. It's so bad that their super radiation resistant robots are like melting right on the spot.
Well, let's go deep woo. I am the master of woo, as Ken says. They look at all this DNA genetic kind of engineering that's going on right now. And one of the first clips you showed me, Tony, from a character called Craig Venter, he was making a presentation to NASA. Now, he was making the case for splicing us with cockroaches or flies or some other insect, purely because they had the ability to reconstruct their DNA. Now, deep space travel, radiation is going to be a problem, so we're going to be bombarded. And his theory was you could actually reconstruct our DNA, splice some in with, we now have CRISPR-9, probably came after Craig Venter's talk, but they can give us the trait from this insect that means radiation's not a problem. Well, could this new species, this human 2.0 that they're engineering up, ready for their new age, is going to have to be nuclear resistant to live on this planet the way it is, right?
Bingo. Now, you and I talked about this when my second book first came out, 2048 Diamonds in the Rough. We talked about it because we said that they were terraforming the planet for the purpose of birthing a new race of beings. So you're exactly right, my friend. The only people that will be left alive will be those ones that have been allowed to have their DNA changed so that they can be resistant to this new environment that's highly charged with radiation. So they want to kill off everybody except just a small serf class, a race of slaves. Those slaves will be resistant to the changes that have taken place on the planet due to radiation and chemtrailing. One thing I want to toss in real quick, going back to D-Wave, going back to the 2048 qubits and the fifth model. You know, you were reminding me of this when you were talking about watching Eric at that presentation about artificial intelligence and biology. You know, Gordy Rose is famous because we've repeated it so many times as saying that their third model, the 512, had the equivalent processing power of 7 billion human brains. And we all thought that was astounding at 512. Well, the latest model, the 2048, the fifth model, is equivalent to 28 billion human brains. The one they just sold to Temporal Dynamics is equivalent to 28 billion human brains. Look, we've stepped into the realm of we can't even really comprehend the capabilities of the technology that exists, including the modification of DNA in any way that they want it modified, including the...
And he's gone.
You see, Scotty Lopez works for Christopher Everard.
Uh-oh. He went to the Christopher Everard School of Connections?
No, well, I'm saying Scott is a co-host, a kind of producer. I'm a co-host, a producer with Tony. Point to bring it up. I'm used to this kind of thing.
Oh, I see. I got you. Okay.
But you don't have to deal with this, you know. You can talk about a dead Egyptian dude's head. I can't tell you the dude because I know that'll get me cut off. Myself and Tony mentioned it before the show.
Shabbatai?
No, not Shabbatai. But there's certain topics that Tony touches upon that will guarantee he gets cut off. Now I know a lot.
I know it happens. It happens on Everard's show too. So.
I mean, people in the chat room are probably laughing right now. Happening during his show. We'll be back after the break.
Real people, real radio. Wherever you are, make it TFR. Truth Frequency Radio.
Disgusting. Just disgusting. That there was the train wreck they called Jojo. He's back every Wednesday and Thursday. Well, look,
You're shedding a tear right now.
a show that I used to listen to until I was called The Freedom Link. You can catch Joe here, 8 p.m. in the UK. I think that's 3 p.m. on the East Coast.
3 p.m. Eastern, right?
Midday on the West Coast. He's back.
Yeah, he is back. The
And you
man,
know
the myth, the legend.
I'm going to come.
Somebody has to give Rush Limbaugh a run for his money. That's all I'm saying. So I'm just gonna,
I'm going to go.
I'm going afternoons, baby.
I'm going to go to Kenneth Webb in just a moment, right? But before the break, Anthony Patch got cut off yet again. Now, during the break, we were discussing this, and we were discussing that sometimes on radio shows, this gets overhyped. It gets over-egged, stuff like that. And, people think about it, the government, the CIA, people like that, Rebecca Roth, no names. But, yeah, people like that infiltrating things and things going wrong. But I'll say this. Tony's hopefully back with us. Tony, are you there?
I'm here, sir.
Well, Tony, I was just saying to Joe during the break that when it comes to the interference that you're under, and we've spoke about before the fact that during one of the Ground Zero University labs with Clyde Lewis, you were approached physically by people. And I was just saying to Joe that, I don't even think it's the government probably that harangues and pulls shenanigans on Tony. I think we're probably looking at corporate espionage. And you're probably looking at D-Wave, Joe. Because, if you're talking about an AI system, an AI can recognize its threats, right? So that's why I suspect that Tony comes under such attack. And it's like I've said to you before, I've watched this unfolding. It's unbelievable. Myself and Whistles, we're on Skype a lot. We've had various lag problems, stuff like that. Really explainable stuff. But some of the things that goes on with Tony, it's just beyond the realms of coincidence. It really is. Everything's fine. You bring up a couple of specific topics, and then all hell breaks loose. And that's why I think personally, anyway, as opposed to the Men in Black CIA kind of stuff, I think we're looking at probable D-Wave corporate espionage. That's just my thoughts. But
no, I have to agree with you.
Yeah, and we've dealt with this on Everhard's show. That's why we had to call Kathy O'Brien on the phone, because it was going to be impossible to do anything with her over Skype because of all of the issues regarding doing anything over the internet with her.
There's certain topics out there, and because everything's so compartmentalized as well, it's such a broad spectrum. I don't think you can say it's just this one group for all things that happen. So Kathy O'Brien, she's shaking a lot of cages when it comes to the mind control. Tony, when it comes to this aspect of stuff. And that's just some of the stuff we have to deal with behind the scenes. Now, that's not to say some of the shows out there might have connection problems and overhype it. But honestly, when it comes to Tony's connection, I can hold my hands up to whatever's up there, that this man is definitely targeted. But Kenneth Webb, you've been very quiet tonight. Sorry, Tony, I'll come back.
Unnerving. I shared with you the twice I cut, and there was no one around me that had their power cut off. It was just me.
Exactly, and this all happened during Eric Kolstrom's show when he was running through the 6 stages of gang stalking. Tony was living it as we were talking it. But Ken Webb, coming to you now, you've been very quiet tonight. You've been kind of trying to hold your brain and your cranium. Your thoughts on all of this, man? And you're talking DNA in the chat here.
Well, yeah, because Tony always, Anthony always melts my brain every time on the show, every single time. What all you guys do with that? We're talking about, changing the people. When we talked about the AI merging, robotics, all of these things, and we look at the things that they bombard us with every day. From just simple Wi-Fi to just everything that's going on, chemtrails, as Anthony was talking about, and all of these things. And that is changing us, our DNA, affecting us in certain ways that we pass that on to the children. And I think that we talk about the 500 million to balance the earth, as they said, the Georgia Guidestones and those types of things. And I'm sitting here thinking wow, with the way things are going and all of the things that they're doing to us environmentally, the food that we eat, the air that we breathe, all the signals that they're bombarding us with, they are changing us. They are evolving us to pass to our children, our grandchildren, the whole genealogy thing, the things that get passed down. And the next thing you know, I think people are going to die off. Some people, like we were talking about the 100 and all of these kinds of things, it affects certain people. So the radiation, some people were immune to it. The black goo cats, they were immune to it. So they wanted to use their blood to save their world. And
black
I think,
goo.
And I think that people, some people are going to die off from it. But I think that's all in the calculation of what they're doing. And I think that other people we're going to transform our bodies, our DNA, everything that is within us are going to change. Some people will die off. Some people will die from cancer. Some people will die from all these different things, be affected in these certain ways. And others will go on. And that might be the weeding us down to the 500 million, like they talk about in the Georgia Guidestones, that are these super people that will eventually merge with the AI. Yes.
And that there is...
Can I toss in another D-wave?
On you go, Tony.
We talked about we talked about the equivalent number of human brains. We go back to, you guys hear this, or did I get cut off when I said it before?
You got cut off, Tony. We didn't hear this part at all.
Okay. At the third model, we have the famous quote you and I have reproduced many times of Gordy Rose saying that the Model 512 had the equivalent processing power of 7 billion human brains. Well, the latest one they just sold that we've talked about, the 2048, it has the equivalency of 28 billion human brains. Now, I'm going to make this really short. I'm going to take it all the way down to the last model, the Model 12, okay? It will have the equivalent number of human brains of 3,584 billion human brains. That's the 12th model of D-Wave.
Wow. You see, this is why I think it's key, Tony, that you are mapping out the model numbers of this, because it kind of makes sense the way you explain it there. Now, Tony, Scott, you're still with us here. We're moving into the last hour here. I'm going to come to you, Scott. Your thoughts on everything we've been covering here.
It's just crazy, man. And the higher these numbers go, as far as the models, this D-Wave, it just makes you wonder. They're going to be accessing so much more information out of these multiple dimensions, right? And it's got to have an effect. You're piercing through, and you're creating these openings to other dimensions, and you've got to wonder, something's got to be bleeding through that and causing all kinds of issues here, in our dimension. Because once you do that, I don't see like how you can close that back up. It's like you're piercing a hole in a piece of paper, and once you've done that, there's really no way to kind of like patch that back up. It's
pardon the pun, but Scott, get this right, because you're right. Once the hole's created, time's irrelevant. But Tony, I'll get you to explain this, because along with the model numbers that have already melted Scott, Ken's, minds, the 5G rollout, the numbers tie up with this as well, with the 4096, don't they?
Yeah, the 5G is 2048. That's 28 billion brains. The 4096 is going to be the 6th model, the next one that's due to come out. And they're not even talking about that one, or all the way from 6 to 12.
So if you get that, Scott, this 5G that's upon us, my router right now, I've got a 5G channel on it. It actually has the same math as the model of quantum computer that's just been bought by a company called Temporal Dynamics.
I'm sure that's all just coincidental, Kev.
As they say in the UK, stay calm and carry on. Nothing.
Yeah, and I'm having to buy a new router sometime soon because I have an extremely old one that obviously, as you know, has been having issues over the last couple of months. But
well, you know, I have to ask Tony, right? Because I've not looked in depth at this Temporal Dynamics company. And Tony, you can correct me on the name if I'm wrong, right? But even Andrea in the chat who you've quoted tonight, she says temporal, LOL. And you've got to wonder whether, like we were talking about on your show with the coded message with the 4096 votes in Belgium, is this some kind of coded message? The fact with temporal, we're talking time, and we know that the D-Wave, or AI, can predict things ahead of time.
Yeah, I do believe that. I think that there are other companies and organizations that own D-Wave computers that they've not told us about. And therefore, Temporal Dynamics, I think, is a message in its name that they're releasing it. It's a legitimate company. It's been around, but the fact that they're making it known itself is a message saying that we are modifying things in terms of not just the code, the encryption as their product line, but they are able to alter the timeline. And as I have stipulated, it's like, okay, can I prove this? Do I have the documents? No. But can you extrapolate the progression of the models? Can you extrapolate their goals and their technology to say that they have not just the 2048 at the fifth model, but can I go to 12 and talk about that? Yes.
Tony,
yes.
Let me butt in, right? Because let's not even go to that big number of qubits. What happens, right? And you were talking earlier on, and we've covered before about how this quantum computing, it totally cracked Shor's algorithm. The cryptology side of this, it could be totally unhackable, right? So what happens if you say, for example, daisy chain 10 2000Q model D-Waves? Would that not have the same effect as building one that has 10 times the power?
Well, it can. And, that's funny because when I was in Knoxville, Tennessee, and did my presentation there at a conference, that was what I announced for the first time in public at that conference, that all of the D-Wave computers are, in fact, they're daisy chained together. They're networked together.
Think about it, Tony, because they're the only computers in the world that can talk to each other,
right,
through the cryptology.
And the example that I gave was if you take your iPhone that has your digital assistant and you put the two phones face to face and have them talk to each other, they begin to argue and they begin to question who is their creator. And if you ask them, did God create you? One will say yes, and the other will try to hedge the question. The point is that they are, to a limited degree, artificially intelligent. But yes, they have to be networked together because they do operate in quantum entanglement. They operate in that quantum world, and no other computer can. And when you talk about cryptology, unless you have a D-Wave computer, you cannot participate in that coded environment that Temporal Dynamics is all about.
And somebody in the chat room here is asking, what about the Awake experiment? Now, this year, that is indeed set to take place, and they are going to be combining that, Tony, with the power of the particles coming from the main ring. So when does that actually kick off? And that's Michael in the chat room asking that.
Yeah, good question, Michael. May 8th is when the Awake project will fire up again. They did their initial startup in November of last year, but May 8th of this year, they will start up. and they will continue to run that right up until mid-December. And it is conjoined. It is now part of the main ring of the Large Hadron Collider. The main ring will provide, from one of the two streams, will provide one stream of pre-accelerated particles that will then feed into the back end of the 30-meter long awake, and then further accelerate those particles towards the north area, center target area of the main ring itself. And from there, we go into the whole discussion of the resurrection of the dead.
And see, what they're basically doing is, if you think about the ring kind of technology, is two AR-15s pointed at each other, firing bullets at one another, and they look at the debris coming off. And what they're going to be doing with the Awake machine is they're going to be taking some of the bullets from one of the AR machines, funneling them into some plasma, speeding them up no end, and then crashing them into the AR-15 bullets coming from the other ring at the other end. A totally different collision and a totally different animal altogether. Wouldn't that be fair to say? Tony?
Yeah, exactly.
It is.
Yeah, because now we're impact. I'm sorry, you're breaking up.
On you go, Tony.
Yeah, they're impacting a fixed target in the north area, whereas previous to this, they'd just been taking two oppositely moving streams of particles and crossing the streams, or even bringing them head to head within the detectors. Now, for the first time, there will be an impact outside of a detector, and it will be at the north area impact. That is the scenario of not only raising the dead, but opening the doorway to the abyss.
Oh, JoJo's.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Bring it. Bring on the giants and the crazy elongated skulled creatures.
Joe, you're talking black woo in the chat room. Come on, what's your theory on the black goo?
The black goo? Oh man, dude, interdimensional goo. I like it. No, I don't. The black goo, I don't know so much about, dude. You know, I kind of like keep that at arm's length only because of what it is.
Hang on, Ken Webb is asking about the super collider that was penciled for being built in Texas.
Oh, the one in Texas.
Now, we know they stopped building that. And Tony, a few weeks ago, it's hard to remember, we actually heard something, or we were exchanging emails about what possibly happened to that location in Texas. Can you remember that?
Yeah, actually, it was a matter of budget cuts. They cut off the funding to continue building it. They built about, if my memory serves, about 14 kilometers of tunnels underneath. And this is in the Dallas, Texas area. It's
boy, Bush was really PO'd about that, huh, Tony?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that you can imagine that the amount of employment and businesses that would be related to the building of that. But you know what the latest discussion has been, and this goes back to 2014, but that's kind of the latest discussion, is using it as a Higgs particle factory, and actually taking the small ring that they had partially built and expanding it to a 100-kilometer oval, and being able to use that at a lower power, somewhat of a lower power level, to produce more of the Higgs bosons. Now, the purpose of that is another discussion, but that is not taking place. They're not even really providing any exploratory or developmental funding for that second ring. But the first ring, yeah, they definitely cut that off.
Aren't the Chinese supposed to be developing a particle collider that's 5 times more powerful than the one at CERN?
Yeah, again, that's the 100-kilometer ring that they're talking about in China. This is an arms race, and one of the reasons for the arms race is not only for kinetic energy weapons and directed energy weapons that are all an offshoot of these colliders at this scale, and of course the Strangelets discussion. But this is also an arms race in terms of extracting that mathematical information from the other side. And this goes all the way back to where we started with my show today, in talking about Enochian mathematics and the hermetic practices of the occult secret societies.
But, you know, we can talk about 100-kilometer rings, 200-kilometer rings. This awake experiment that's going to be taking place at CERN, this whole apparatus, I mean, this is a different animal, like I said, and this is plasma acceleration as opposed to the whole radio kind of frequency and magnetic propulsion that we see in the rings. And Tony, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is 1,000 times more effective. So aside from building these massive ring collider kind of apparatus, we could be building things that sit on our tabletops that have the same kind of energy and power as CERN, right?
Yeah, you're right. The 1,000 times the power of the main ring is what they're talking about with the combination of the two collider or the two accelerators, the ring and the linear being combined at 1,000 times the effective power of the main ring. That's why they're able to make the quantum leap literally from tera electron volts to which is 13.5 tera electron volts to 20 peta electron volts, is because of the advent of this plasma wake field. Now, at the Stanford Linear Accelerator, and this goes back about 6 years, they developed a chip-sized linear accelerator. Now, obviously, it's very small, but that's what you're talking about when you mention tabletop linear accelerators, particle accelerators, is you're doing it literally on a chip.
Now, Tony, correct me if I'm wrong, right? Because we've had satellites that are launched into space, little black cubes, and I think even Joe, you've worked on these things, but don't even they, or can they act as particle accelerators as well, using the same technology? And we hear Ilana Freeland, she talks about the space fence, this kind of thing. Isn't that what we're seeing deployed here?
Yeah, you know, as far as the space fence and all that's concerned, I don't know. I know that we have nanosats that go up and they're the size, I forget, they're like 10 centimeters across. You know, that's probably one of the purposes of the X-37B is they can carry these nanosats up there and put them into orbit, and you can carry a ton of them with a little glider like that. You know, it goes up into space, it does its thing, it comes back down, and oh, by the way, it has a propulsion system whose fuel is solar power. It actually converts solar power to energy to fuel that thing.
That for me, that in itself is like a UFO because we know so little about it, right? And it's up in space or lower Earth orbit for so much time, uncontrolled, fully autonomous. Who only knows what kind of missions that's carrying out?
I don't know, but I can tell you I would make it the equivalent of smart dust in space, like on that size, you know, like, so you're talking, you know, relative to the size of Earth, these satellites are like grains of sand, almost like, you know, smart dust is to us here down on the planet.
Do you think you get Boeing building this thing called the space fence because they talk about mapping all the things, all the debris in Earth's orbit? And when you're talking about satellites, Joe, and the thing for people to really get their head around here is Joe's worked on these things physically. I mean, they are up there in orbit. Mm-hmm. They are getting smaller and smaller. I mean, they have to map these things, right? So, I mean, do you think why Boeing is creating the space fence, exactly why they're telling us on the kind of public documents to map all these things?
Yeah, well, that may be a purpose. You know, I don't know. Typically, when they build stuff, the people that build it know what they're building, and if it's something, you know, if there's maybe a dual purpose for it that's kind of left out of things, you know, they can get away with that. But I don't know. The whole space fence thing it certainly is an interesting concept.
It's almost it's like SDI in the modern age, Joe.
Yeah.
We're almost coming to the break. And I know people out there, and we've got listeners who wholeheartedly believe in a flat Earth model. They don't do satellites, things like that. But you have to appreciate, myself and Joe, we've worked in the military. We've kind of worked with satellites, and that's the kind of field we come from. And we're not knocking your beliefs, and you have to appreciate the fact that this is our mindset because we've worked this kind of technology. And that's why I keep an open mind to it all. But when it comes to that side of things, That's why I don't discount everything that we hear about space and NASA and satellites and things like that, Joe.
You're right. And even in the flat Earth model, I think you can make a case that satellites have their uses and they could be put up there and things like that. So, I mean,
absolutely, man.
Yeah. So, I mean, either way, I can tell you that, that could be one purpose. Another purpose could also be the fact that we are experiencing changes from a cosmic sense that have affected our planet and are affecting our planet, along with the things in the experimentations and the manipulation of our magnetic field and all that kind of stuff through CERN and other particle accelerators. I wonder if that's just not a way to manage it, somehow, some way to kind of manage it or minimize that, the effects, because, it affects everything. I don't know. We'll come back. Final segment of Freaky Friday right after the...
This is Truth Frequency Radio.
The wicked ones obviously under heavy Masonic influence.
Welcome back, everybody. It is Freaky Friday. Thank you. Yeah, a little asleep at the wheel. Scotty Lopez.
The Wookiee was asleep. The Wookiee was asleep, man.
Okay, all right. Yeah, see, but you didn't slap him upside the head like you were supposed to. It's all right. It's Freaky Friday. It's a final segment. And the Woo Crew's here. Of course, we got Kev Baker, Kenneth Webb, Scotty Lopez, myself, and Tony Patch. And we're wrapping it up. For the and so, what?
Like some kind of secret ceremony after the show where we induct Tony into the Woo Crew.
That's right. We have to get him. We got to get him his Wookiee wig.
Yeah, I need it.
Yes, I know you do. I know it'll be refreshing to have the golden locks flowing once again.
No, I just use Kev's drawing of me as Einstein as a model.
Well, then we'll have you do the 60 cycle shuffle then too, and that'll that'll take care of that.
Tony, this is what's utterly freaky. I've just clicked to send files to the chat room, and I'm looking for your Einstein picture. You see?
Imagine that. Hey, so final segment, and I've got a couple of freaky stories that I thought I'd go over with everybody. The first one that comes to mind, over in the UK, they found a skeleton, guys, and it ended up being a 8-foot serpent, an 8-foot sea serpent that washed up on the shores in Cornwall over in the UK. And people there think that it could be Morgaur, the legendary Cornish monster.
Utter nonsense.
It's crazy, Joe, because they got the orange alligators, the orange turtles showing up in Florida. We got the hairy beast washing up on show. Man, I'm telling you, it's a madhouse with the crazy things that are going on.
Totally, dude. So in Cornish,
no, Joe. There's only one monster in the UK, and it is in Loch Ness.
It's not. Come on, Nessie's not a monster. Nessie's like Brontosaurus, dude. That's like calling Brontosaurus a monster. You don't do that. I mean, come on.
To be kidding me, man.
No, Morgaur is definitely looking a lot more like a water T-Rex than like a water Brontosaurus.
I'm the only guy on TFR probably that can say I've got a cryptoid expert, and his name is Denver Michaels, and I will be sending him all the information on your fake monster, Joe. There's only
Morgaur sounds like some kind of a monster out of Lord of the Rings or something.
Dude, it totally is. Now listen to this. People who believe in mysterious lake monsters, such as the Loch Ness Monster, can also look towards the ocean for some legendary deep-sea creatures in and around Falmouth Bay, which is off the coast of Cornwall, England. People have been claiming for centuries that they have seen the sea monster called Morgaur. The beast eludes scientists but excites locals and tourists alike who have managed to photograph Morgaur and even capture video footage of the monster, and now his rotting carcass is on the beaches of Cornwall.
Morgaur. See, now that's a name that you can be scared of. Morgaur.
That's it, dude.
You better look out for that
Nessie. Thing. Hi, Nessie.
Yeah, exactly. That's
totally going to name a metal
that's
band
kind of weird,
Morgaur.
but
hey,
Morgaur.
You guys are knocking my like waterborne version of the Sasquatch. Listen, guys, I've lived in the my life and I've never heard of Morgower. The Loch Ness Monster, on the other hand, that's a different animal. And, get this, because we were talking Crowley with Anthony Patch earlier on his show. And isn't it interesting that the reports of the sightings of the Loch Ness Monster only start to happen after Aleister Crowley opens a portal while doing his Babylon working? Just saying.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And there's even rumor that that Nessie eats haggis. That's her diet, primary.
Nessie is harder than you, Joe. You're scared.
Yeah, but come on, you just said it, Kev. Nessie. Ooh, Nessie gonna get you. It's like Mothman. It's like the freaking Mothman, right? Ooh, Mothman gonna get you. Now, we can think like, ooh, our actual Mothman might be scary, but it's the name. It's the name. Loch Ness Monster. That's scary. But Nessie, come on.
Wait, I have a question from the audience from over in the Wookiee Cave. Kev, the question to you is, what is haggis?
Haggis is cooked traditionally in the lining of a sheep's stomach. Now, it's a various assortment of spices and oatmeal cooked in sheep's blood as well. Nice.
Yes. So,
no.
So Louis in the chat room, that's...
it was banned in the USA up until a couple of years ago.
Yeah, so that's...
You need to know.
Just so you know, it's very similar, I would have to say, to Scrapple.
No.
Here in the United States.
No.
Oh, totally, dude. It's like Scrapple. It's like Scrapple cooked in chitlins. There you go. That's what that is. If you could take some Scrapple, put it in chitlins, and then cook it in that, that's basically what you have there.
I want the listeners to take note. 6 months from now, this is why I fell out with Joe Joseph.
Or it might have been the blood pudding. No, we don't know.
Guys, come on, guys. We're in the last segment. We're about.
And I got another one.
Go for it.
I got another one. Now, this one, I don't know. I can't tell you if I quite believe this one or not. I'll leave it up to you. But according to the Daily Mirror, man claims his pet dog accidentally shot his sleeping girlfriend after leaping on a gun.
Well,
so
coming from the UK, I won't tell people the veracity of information coming from the Mirror, but I'm not buying it, Joe.
Well, Brian Murphy says his partner, Summer Miracle, yes, that's her name, was blasted in the leg after Diesel leaped on the nightstand where he kept his gun and actually set it off. Murphy, 25, from Jacksonville, Florida, told police that the animal woke him up, so he decided to take the pooch for a nighttime walk. When they returned, Murphy said the mutt ran ahead of him, ran into the couple's dark bedroom where Summer was fast asleep, and jumped on the nightstand, and then there was a flash accompanied by a loud bang, and then he realized his girlfriend had been injured. So what do you think? You think it's possible?
It sounds like this guy has used the dog ate my homework thing way too long, and he's still rolling with it.
What really happened?
Yeah, or like George Carlin used to say, hey, today on the brighter side of the news, the guy killed his wife, his kids, his mom, his dad, his cousins, next door neighbor, the lady that worked in the filling station, and he claimed that he was just cleaning his gun when it suddenly went off.
Are you going all Trump on us? And are you blaming fake news, Kenneth Webb?
Oh God, are we doing this again? Are we going there again,
Fake.
Mr. Webb?
Did they check prints?
all I know is I'm just thinking logistically speaking, I'm having trouble seeing how said dog could have, just by jumping on the gun, would be able to get by the however many pound trigger pull there is.
Joe, don't let facts like that get in the way of a good story, right? And I'm thinking,
yeah, you're right.
We could pitch an idea to History Channel. We could have the pet detective, and it would be like the dog that goes about solving crimes.
Ooh.
I mean, I know you've been on
maybe we can have popular mechanics debunk this.
Exactly. I know Joe has like been on the History Channel. You're on the advert over here in the UK, which always makes me smile. But
Is that right? Oh, look at that, man. My mug is shining.
Yeah. Come on.
Oh, yeah. Gracing UK airwaves.
I'll shame you.
It'd have to be, honestly, it would have to be a hair trigger. Okay. I mean, something really light. But I mean, most of the automatics and they're like Glocks and stuff like that, you got the two-way safeties on them. I mean, you got the one safety on the trigger, you got the other safety on the handle. I mean, it would have to be safety off, hair trigger, something like that, where you could take the gun and throw it in the air, it hits the ground, and it goes off.
Ain't buying it.
No way. No way. He shot her in the leg, where I got mad at her. She did something. He shot her in the leg, and then she fit in whatever. She didn't want to get him in, so they all agreed to the story before it all happened.
Thank you.
Hey,
Much better.
Why don't we start our own reality show on TV?
Oh,
and what should we call this reality show?
Come on, Tony.
No, I'm not. No.
Boom, there it is.
Well, Tony, it's like I said to you earlier on. I mean, the Kev Baker show is basically you're getting an armchair look into my waking up, because I go into so many topics. This is the way my research goes. I hit one thing, a guest tells me something, I go and listen to various other shows, like with you. It's Clyde Lewis. I hear Tony Patch speaking. Need to get him on. So what are you saying here, Tony? What's your idea for a show, man? Come on.
No, I think it's just the Freaky Friday format would be great, and they could just have people throw all kinds of topics and questions at us, and we'd have to field them, just like we're having batting practice on the baseball field.
I think that sounds perfect, guys. You know what happens when we open the phones, right?
What happens when we open the phones?
We get that one woo guy that comes in. It just melts our mind with some. No matter, we'll pull from the helmet. Boom! This cat comes right out the cuts. No matter what the topic is, at a split or talk about a hairline trigger jack. Oh my goodness! This guy comes out and it's just like what?
Hey, by the way,
open them up, Kev.
I want to go here too before we run out of time. Scientists have discovered something very worrying on Antarctica.
Oh, Antarctica. Now, listen, there is no topic quite like Antarctica. Tell us.
True. Experts from the UK say that the crack is now as wide as the Shard. If you don't know what the Shard is, it's a 95-story skyscraper in Southwark, London. This is a massive crack in the ice shelf, Larsen Sea.
Right now, let me ask you, Joe, is this the one that forced the British scientists to move their kind of like scientific lab across the ice?
Yes. Yeah, they had to. Yeah, right.
This is something that's in the news a lot, right? And I have to ask people because, Scott, you're the first person that alerted me to something going on at the South Pole. And it was the fact you covered the whole Saturn monument that was unveiled down at the South Pole. And ever since you put that into my consciousness, it is becoming the spoke about topic on the internet. Now, when this crack, Joe, that you're talking about, I have to ask, I mean, is it revealing something that's below the ice?
I don't.
I mean, the Nazis were wanting to go down there. We know they went.
I don't know, but there's been an awful lot of attention down there. Now, also at the same time that this is going on, by the way, what's going to happen is this big iceberg that's going to be twice the size of Luxembourg is going to be out in the ocean, and God only knows where it's going to go. So who knows? It's going to be some. Maybe it'll go somewhere.
I mean, is this why people are racing down there? We've had Buzz Aldrin, and I know there's a lot of disinfo about him going down there, right?
Right.
But one thing we do know is he went down there. John Kerry went down there.
John Kerry. Well, they're building. They're also building. Now, this is one of the sites where you have one of, I think, 5 telescopes that are all linked together. That's going to be used in April to get the first ever photographs of a black hole.
Let me say this, right? Because it's Freaky Friday.
Yeah, go ahead.
Nibiru, right? They say
freaky.
They say it's on an ecliptical kind of orbit.
Mm-hmm.
coming in from the southern hemisphere? Are they all rushing to see it down there?
But don't you think that somebody would see it by now, somehow, some way?
Joe, you know me, I don't ridicule them, but I say to myself and I laugh to myself about how you get videos on YouTube and people on Facebook, they share like pictures of lens flares and stuff like that. And even if you discount them, right, you've got the whole amateur astronomical community with really expensive telescopes now that are doing a really good job. And yet people think that they're going to catch images of Nibiru on a smartphone.
Why not, dude? Yeah.
Joe?
Or the ever popular lens flares.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, if we're going to be seeing some kind of extra planetary body coming into the system, forget NASA, forget the European Space Agency. I think the amateur astronomical community are going to be the ones that will be able to tell us first.
Absolutely. I think if anything is the best candidate for Nibiru, it's this Planet 9 object.
Absolutely, Scott. I mean, even Caltech, they came out, they talked about this planet that was on a 13,000 to 22,000 year kind of orbit. It was ecliptical. It was causing the perturbations on the likes of Neptune and Jupiter and Saturn and things like that. And I'm like you, Scott, I think that's the best candidate yet for what we would probably commonly accept as Nibiru, stuff like that. But I'll get Tony's thoughts on that. And then we've got a very special visitor to the show just before we leave. Tony, Nibiru, Planet X, 7X, you spoke to Gil Broussard, I believe. What's your thoughts on all this?
Yeah, I just consider it to be wormwood, which is going to be a few years down the road from us. Maybe 2 to 3 years from now, I think wormwood will make itself apparent. So I think maybe things are a little bit early down in the old South Pole.
Well, we've got about 10 minutes to go on the show. Very special visitor to the Freaky Friday.
Nano!
Yo, Nano.
Hey, we're dried out, so I thought I'd, just slip in and say, hiya, Freaky Friday, you guys hit it out of the park tonight. Great job.
Nano, are you enjoying all the fun with the Oroville Dam flood that's going on?
Hey, we have a flood here in San Jose. The Coyote
Yeah,
Creek.
you guys are like everywhere's underwater right now. This is unbelievable. I'd be very careful. I hope you have your ark ready.
Joe, is the big one coming?
Well, we don't need the big one. We're drowning.
No, they're flooded out. I mean, this is like the Great Flood.
Yeah, I didn't even I feel so bad. I didn't realize. I know that Coyote Creek is bad. We've got Oroville. People are praying. We got more water coming this weekend. And where is Jerry Brown? I don't know.
So Nano Girl, we've been talking AI, technology, all that kind of stuff tonight. You're my girl in the valley. What have you got to say about all of this, man?
I'm still mystified at the 7 planets we found all of a sudden. And what you talked about, this new computer company, Temporal Dynamics. Woohoo! And that the D waves, talking to all the other D waves, and oh my God, you guys, it was just such a really fantastic show. And Kenneth always says, whoa, my mind is mush.
You see, you hear that, guys? You hear that, Tony? We have melted the Nano Girl. I think she's getting drowned out by a fan over there. But this is the kind of problems we had with Nano the other night. But I know you love the Nano Girl. Any questions for Nano, Tony?
Are you just east, or I should say just west of Morgan Hill? Are you in the upper end of the San Jose area?
Yeah, you know where Los Gatos is, right? So I'm about 30 minutes from Morgan Hill. But what's happened is the Coyote Creek flooded, and 50,000 people in San Jose, which is just me, right, were flooded.
But you're okay?
Yeah, I am. I'll tell you one thing that I have never seen in San Jose, not for a really long time. I mean, this is very typical when we have a drought. and it rains and there's, it's just this big runoff. But my backyard was filling up with water like it used to do when I lived in Texas. And I haven't seen anything like that. And we've got another storm coming this weekend. Hopefully it's just a couple of days. But the roads, and another thing is, you guys know 17. So I live at the bottom of 17, which you would take that road over the hill over to go to Santa Cruz.
Right.
It's closed. They don't even be bothering to try to fix it because the mudslide is so bad. So people have to go Highway 1. They have to go up to San Francisco through Half Moon Bay, or they have to go south and then go up 1. So just visualize you trying to take, and it's only 2 lanes each way. But I mean, you have tons and tons of people that live there now, and it's shut down. I've never seen 17 like completely shut down. They went from 1 lane to no lanes.
I know that area extremely well. I grew up in the area, so I understand what you're dealing with. Are you expecting more of the Pineapple Express high temperatures in the Sierra and snowmelt?
I think we are. It's pretty cold here. So what's interesting, another thing that's happening, so it warms up, it rains, the rain stops, and it's back to 35. From what I understand, to answer your question, yes. From what I understand from our weather guy, I listen to every morning. Yep, that's exactly what could happen.
Yeah, what's happening is they're getting a lot of warm air ahead of these storm systems, and then it cools off for a little bit on the backside of the systems, and then you get the Pineapple Express moisture pumping back in again and warming things back up. So that's what they've been having to deal with. They're dealing with these waves and waves of storm systems that are coming in because they're all following this basically a river of moisture, this Pineapple Express moisture stream that's coming from the Pacific Ocean.
What's your thoughts on the integrity of the Oroville Dam, considering the possibility of the snowpack starting to melt?
That was not, all that stuff was not supposed to happen, right? And it was supposed to hold up. I don't know. I think what's creepy about this is, and I think we'd all agree, that our geoengineers are not supposed to let this happen. They're supposed to modify the weather for good, not for evil. And I do think that this drought we've had for the last, 4 or 5 years was engineered. So now they're raiding us out. And so I'm concerned about the Oroville people. And Joe, didn't you talk about that on one of your shows recently?
Yeah, the dam?
Yes.
Well, the flood area, if that dam goes, the flood area is enormous. And you're talking about, if you're up to a quarter mile from the dam, you'll be under 100 feet of water, all the way out 200 miles out, and you're still under 10 feet of water. It's a huge area that would be inundated with water if that Oroville Dam goes. And do I expect it to go? I don't think so, because they're filling it in with rock and substantial stuff, not just earth. So I don't really see it like breaching to that point. But certainly it's going to take. I forget what the estimate was.
It can reach a level where there's nothing humans can possibly do.
Right.
To stop
it could do that.
And let's bring Tony in here, because I think it was on your show, Tony. We've probably got a lot of new listeners now, because some of this stuff that we're seeing unfolding around the Oroville Dam situation, it's been in a recent advertisement as well, hasn't it?
Yeah, in the Lexus commercial that we talked about on the show, they were actually showing Oroville Dam, and it was showing a flood. And I think it was all predictive programming to this.
Wow.
And that's the kind of thing that concerns me is that, first of all, I think this is engineered. I think the drought was too. And do they want the land back? Is this engine 21? Do they want to flood it out? And maybe it wasn't you that I heard say this, Joe, but there was somebody else said that if Oroville goes, that's it, right? Those guys won't get back in there. So
that's also the primary dam for water in California, especially Southern California, is the Oroville Dam. So that has got some far-reaching consequences. And, who knows? Who knows, Nano, what could happen? But I can tell you the weather systems have been unbelievable coming through California this winter.
Shasta is spilling water from its spillway into the Sacramento. That's the headwater of the Sacramento, and the Sacramento feeds into the Feather River at Oroville, and then they both continue on down through the San Joaquin Valley. So Shasta is full, and they're dumping water.
And of course, when you talk Mount Shasta, Joe, that takes us back to Stargates. And what a Freaky Friday this is, brother. We're almost out of time. Chris and Cherie Geo, they're going to continue this info fest after the break. This has been amazing. 5 hours for myself and Tony.
It has, and I gotta give a big shout out to my lady out there, Crystal, in the chat room to join us in the Wookiee Cave, because Tony's on here. She don't come listen to me. She come listen to Tony. But I gotta send her. Right. I gotta send the love out to her in the chat room. And love you guys.
I know, buddy.
See, Tony's got that star appeal, Joe.
Yeah. See, well, it's not that. Don't take it personal, Ken. I mean, after all, it's Tony.
It's Tony. Right.
Right. So
I don't. He melts my brain.
It's all good in the hood. No. Thank you, Tony, for being part of the Woo Crew. And of course, anytime you want to do 5 hours, you're more than welcome to.
You guys are the greatest. And Nano, thanks for coming on board.
Thanks for letting me slip in. It's always good to be here. I miss you guys a lot. So wonderful.
Nano, I had to kill the conspiracies again. They're going to start that we've fallen out, right?
Again?
I already started that rumor. What are you talking about?
It's Joe that does it.
Then that they were testing out, and now they're on to something new. They probably don't, the flying saucer and the flying cigars, that's old news now. They've moved on to something, probably some kind of vehicles that manipulate energy fields around them, and that's why they look like glowing orbs and things of that nature. I think 95% of this, though, is Black Project vehicles, and probably about 5% are genuinely something that is completely unexplainable, even by their standards, that there's something going on. But what I think everybody is seeing here is the technology of the breakaway civilization, right? Your space fleet sort of activity. And you're looking at technology that's, possibly 40, 50, 60 years ahead of what we even can comprehend. So that's why I think you've seen this metamorphosis from, like you said, old flying saucers, because let's be honest, the military was experimenting with that flying saucer-shaped aircraft. The Germans had saucer-shaped aircraft. They were already experimenting with a triangle-shaped, stealth designs, flying wings, the triangle shape. So that's all old. That's all old news now. That's all old news. And I think you're seeing aircraft that are probably cloaked in energy fields and, surrounded by plasma and stuff like that. And that's why
Klingons are coming, Ken Webb.
Well, and another possibility could be that with the advancement of our technology and social media, the internet, and us being able to share a lot of these things and video, and everybody's got cameras, everything, that perhaps, just perhaps, I'm just throwing this out there, that they started using cloaking devices. They started using those cloaking devices. They started to conceal themselves more as the reason why we might not be seeing them as well. There's a lot of things. What do you think, Tony?
Well, do you guys remember the father of the hydrogen bomb? Remember who that was?
Teller?
You're right, Dr. Edward Teller. Now, in his last, let's say 10 years of his career, he was focused entirely on anti-gravity for the purpose of aircraft.
Yeah, forget flying cars, right, Tony? Because we can't have that, damn it.
Right. Now, you mentioned going back in history and some of the popular culture. When I was a kid,
yes,
I used to read the comic strip in the newspaper. A newspaper, can you believe it? Newspaper.
Say that again. What was that?
Yeah, newspaper.
Did you say newspaper?
Something like that. Something
okay.
you open your hand that's made out of paper.
Oh,
but they had a comic strip.
Did it do anything for you? Did it like have any? Did it pop out at you? Nothing, huh? Just had words.
No, we just wrapped up the fish in it.
Oh. Well, multi-purpose then. Nice.
Yeah. But Dick Tracy used to fly around the planet in a cigar-shaped spacecraft.
Yes, he did.
It was anti-gravity.
Yep. Wow. I forgot about that. That's a good point.
Yeah, Wonder Woman flew around in an invisible airplane.
Hey, that's right. The invisible jet. Wow. Hey, here's something interesting, and maybe this is kind of a coincidence.
On the news this week, but he will be back on Monday. You see, we don't have the problems with traveling at the speed of light on KBS. We've got quantum travel, folks. Johnny will be back by Monday, Scott.
Is Whistles going to plant the Templar flag on one of these planets? And
well, I don't know about that, right? But he seems to be getting very worried right now. You know, there's that really good show we discussed, The Curse of Oak Island.
Yes, dude. Did they find it? I saw something that they found it. They found the treasure.
They found what they believe is one of the kind of metal hinges that would hold a treasure chest together. They found a gold coin right where the money pit should be. There's going to be another season. But Johnny Whistles, his Templar blood is boiling. He was telling me he's very, very worried. He thinks they're going to find it. Whatever this treasure is, his Templar blood is resonating. Maybe he's over in Oak Island right now, re-hiding it. Who only knows? Big shout out to Whistles, though.
Yeah, that's a great show. You know, I do catch TV once in a while, and Oak Island, the Curse of Oak Island, I really do make an effort to watch. And I did watch last week's 2-hour special. It's interesting because it follows somewhat of a parallel path of my research, and I keep expecting to run across something that I can send to them to help them out. But they're on the right path. It is all about the Rosicrucians. It's about the Knights Templar. It's about the Vatican. It is about the jewels of France, the crown jewels.
Do you think the Library of Alexandria, all of that stuff, do you think that plays into it as well, Tony?
You know, I don't think so. I think that too much of that was kept in the Middle East and destroyed as well. I really think it primarily is gold. But what I'm really worried about since the last show, for their sake, is that perhaps the British already dug it all up.
Well, you know, Tony, that's interesting you say that, because I actually said that to Anne when we were watching the 2-hour finale, because we had the coins dug up earlier in the season, certainly British activity there. And if they knew there was something there, you can bet your bottom dollar they would have dug it up and taken it back to the Queen. So who really knows? And, you know, the fact I bust Johnny's chops is because he's called John Sinclair. And that, obviously, when you trace it back, it goes to the St. Clairs. And if you watch The Curse for Oak Island, you'll see that that name is really synonymous with the place. But, you know, they call it the money pit, Joe, right?
Yeah.
Is that because, I mean, how much money have these Laguna brothers poured into this?
You may not remember this, but Tony, you probably do. Do you remember the hype that surrounded the opening of Al Capone's vault?
Oh, sure. Yeah, with Geraldo Rivera.
With Geraldo, that was when, you know, he and Morton Downey, you know, the mouth, the guy there. Morton Downey Jr. Yeah, they kind of competed for, they were kind of like that initial really crass talk show and they kind of fought. I remember one time he took like a steel chair to the nose. Geraldo. Yeah,
did. It was the beginning of the trash talk shows that led to like Jerry Springer and all that.
So I remember the hype surrounding that. It's like a month. They were like, yeah, we're going to open Al Capone's vault. Blah, what are we going to find? They found like an empty bottle and a pair of like dirty drawers. That was it. You know, there was nothing to it. It was a big crap. Got a lot of ratings. And, you know, I kind of feel like maybe this is the way that Oak Island's going to end up being, like you guys said. The British went, they raped and pillaged it, and now we're going to see like an empty bottle, perhaps a token gold coin here and there.
Woo! What's up, brothers, sisters, truthers, 10-4 hatters, and woo seekers, Wookiees, time travelers, ghost hunters, and black goo creepers? You know what time it is, people. It's Freaky Friday, February 24th, 2017. And as always, we're sending out the nothing but love vibe to the Wookie Cave at truefrequencyradio.com/chat. And everyone else listening out there on the FM frequencies of 90.7 in Denver, Colorado, 97.3 in Eugene, Oregon, High Heart Radio listeners, and all around the world on this thing that we call the net. And oh yeah, people, you know it's on. First time listeners catching this show 1,000 years from now. How does one woo, you might ask? Kick on back and we will show you how. Welcome. Listen, aliens, interdimensional beings, or an AI looking for some data? Sky watchers, rain dancers, chupacabras, voodooers. It doesn't matter. What's up? Whoever, whatever, wherever you are, man. Kick on back. You're listening to Freaky Friday on TFR TrueFrequencyRadio.com. And here on the USS Freaky Friday is the usual suspect crew of Captain Wu himself, Kev Baker on the bridge, First Officer Joe Joseph detecting strange life forms in the Wookiee Cave, Beamers up, Scotty Lopez in the transporter room, and I'm ready to fire Kenneth Webb, a.k.a. change the channel on the Photon Torpedoes. Boom! Also joining us for a little bit tonight is Starfleet Commander himself, Tony Patch. And man, oh man, gentlemen, are we ready for some freaky?
It is. It's Freaky Friday? Wow. This is great. I came to the right place. Hey, fellers. How you doing tonight?
I don't know, but just that introduction from Kenneth Webb, that should be played worldwide every morning. That's enough to get you ready for the day, isn't it?
That's a great idea, because, I work nights now. So, yeah. To get a little motivated, I think I'm just going to play that intro from here on out. Defo.
No, I'm not even going to ask what you're on.
Yeah, classified. You don't want to know that. Let's go to the chat room right now. Right, we got 47 in the Wookie Cave, and we're just getting started. We got Irish Pete, we got Freeman 8, Lucky, you're hello there tonight. We got Two Feathers, Andy Yates, Bill Demarest, Carl Allen, Carol Motzinger, Carol Smith-Ray. We got Charles Calvo, Chris Smith, Darkwater, good old Daryl 6390, Daryl Bowles, Danita Thompson. We got Drone Free Zone, Gail Wood, Jeff Phillips, George Hanks, James Millward, Jason Simcoe, Jen Golden, John Teeter was here. Hello, John. We got Ken Webb. Get bigger. We got Louis Ta. We got Loz Aurora Epps. We got Martha Hoff, Mary Ellen Bernard, Matt Walker, Michael Thompson, Nancy Lalonde, Pam Wolf, Real Info Today, Rebecca Jacobs Gray. We got Richard Jones, Robert Dickinson, Rockin' Rio 7. Hey, I like Rockin' Rio. I think Rush did a tour, Rockin' Rio. Yeah. We got Sam Ramirez, Scotty Lopez, Sean Barraclough, Simon Wilkins, Star the Oracle, Stephen Gray, Tano Ortiz, Tony Patch, Tori C., and last but not least, Wayne Jones. Welcome aboard.
Now, I don't want the cult of whistles, Anakin. I have dispatched him on a KBS mission. He is making his way to the TRAPPIST-1 star system because Whistles is that fed up with NASA. He's decided, if you want something doing, go and do it yourself. So he's away to examine all these new exoplanets that were announced.
1910. So it's been an interest of theirs for quite some time. Now, interestingly, Sam's observed that spotting of flying saucers have been on the downturn, despite the fact that there's been a rise in sightings overall. So the question is, if not so many flying saucers, then what happened? Did the ETs just start to, maybe they got a technology upgrade? Yeah, you just don't know. Now, in terms of geography, Sam Monfort reports that the U.S. seems to be the most prone to UFO sightings all year round. The states actually report 300 times as many sightings than the global average. See? So when it comes to tinfoil hattery, when it comes to being a Wookiee, America is tops, baby. America.
You know,
Just
we had
remember
Gary Heseltine on last night, and he's one of the leading kind of researchers in the UK. And what really gets me about him is he's an ex-policeman. And what he does is he takes reports from other serving and retired police officers. And, you know, for some reason, I don't know why, but I always put a lot more weight behind the kind of sightings that come from these types of people, pilots as well, because there's a culture of fear out there. And we were discussing this last night, and these people are scared to come forward when they do see stuff. Now, UFOs, the more common term that they're starting to use nowadays, Joe, is UAP, unidentified aerial phenomenon. This is the new UFO terminology, okay? UAP as well, unidentified aerial vehicles. And this is the kind of acronyms that the military and people like that are using. I don't know if you've noticed as well, but it used to be that you never seen anything from the police and stuff like that. But earlier on this year, we had a video released by the police, and it showed a police helicopter that was filming some kind of unidentified flying object on one of its cameras. And at the same time, we also had the Chilean Navy coming out and releasing a very similar video as well. And we talk about disclosure and things like that, and we've had these new planets announced by NASA this week. And I think the disclosure, if you want to call it that, it's already unfolding all around us.
Think
but
so?
Here's the thing. Is it genuine disclosure? Are we looking at genuine things from other worlds? Or are we being deceived again? Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. Scotty, let me give you a little... So in 1930, roughly, you had 100% basically of the UFO sightings as flying saucers. You at times had some lights in there, a couple of triangles, and believe it or not, flying cigars. You had flying cigars too, and humanoids. Yes. Now, as time goes on, the flying saucer phenomenon has decreased, and so has the flying cigars. But spheres and lights have really kind of taken over as far as the majority of UFO sightings. So isn't that interesting now that the majority of them are spheres and lights, whereas UFOs, the flying saucers, the triangles, and the flying cigars are now kind of like in the background. What do you think?
Well, me and Ken were kind of talking about this last night towards the end of the show, and I personally think that 95% of these sightings are probably military, black project vehicles, and I think the reason you're seeing a sort of morphing from what you said, the traditional flying saucer to, something different now is you're seeing the acceleration of technology. People were probably looking at old tech back then.
Well,
but that's about it. For all the effort that these guys put into it, and let me tell you, what a gargantuan effort it's been, and what a journey. I feel awful that they're going to be disappointed, but I kind of feel that's going to happen.
If we don't get them on Freaky Friday by the start of next season, I am going to be homeless. Anne is absolutely hooked on that series, so I'm going to try my hardest to get somebody from the team to come on. But yeah, it's a fascinating, absolutely fascinating show. It connects a lot of the stuff that we talk about on here as well. And I mean, Oak Island, you can't get any better a mystery than that, can you?
Nah. No, you can't. Man, now I want to go back and watch back episodes of Morton Downey Jr.
Well,
son of a gun.
Because I don't know how many people actually seen it, but Tony, I'll ask you, because they brought two sisters to the island, and I believe they were called the Macmillans or something like that.
Right.
And family were one of the first to actually see the lights on the island, and they noticed a pulley system, an indent in the ground, and they started digging.
Ooh.
Now, common present day, they took them back to the island, and they've got a golden cross. Now, they say that the family story is that this was part of 3 treasure chests that was dug up out the actual pit. So
Really?
my question to you is, Tony, we've seen it being dated. The historian is absolutely beyond herself. She's loving it back to maybe the 1500s, the Aztecs, things like that. Could we be looking at the fact that those people that originally found the hole took everything out of it?
Well, that's in the time of Queen Elizabeth I, and she was totally into the occult. She was the patron of Dr. John Dee. That's Dee, and John Dee is the forerunner to the whole occult movement of today. What that cross that family had, she had as an heirloom. That cross they described as that archaeological expert that was examining the cross. She said that the holes once contained, I think she said sapphires or rubies. Either way, they were red stones. And that cross is a rose cross. That is a Rosicrucian, also known as the Order of the Golden Dawn. But that they didn't say that on the show. But that is a rose cross by way of the fact that it had red stones in it, symbolizing the roses of the Rosicrucians. And that is not something that they talked about on the show.
Yeah, see, they don't give you the full story, but you get it right here on Freaky Friday.
Aye, that you do. That you do.
So come on, Joe. What have we got for tonight, man? Come on.
Okay, well, let's start off with something a little bit. Let's go with some regular unleaded, shall we? Let's not get them into,
I dread to think where we're going.
So UFO sightings. UFO sightings seem to be at an all-time high. This, according to the Independent. And I got a couple of theories on this, but I want to bounce it off you guys too. So, yeah, like I said, this has been steadily increasing over the years. As a matter of fact, it really started to spike around 1990. Around 1990, you had a huge uptick in UFO sightings. And Sam Monfort, a leading statistician, is actually tracking this, which is very interesting. He says that he's collated all these sightings that are recorded by the National UFO Reporting Center, which I didn't know there was a National UFO Reporting Center over in the UK, but apparently there is. It's actually a U.S. organization, pardon me. And they actually started recording these UFO sightings around